Shalom and welcome everybody to the Unexpected Cosmology. Class is in session. Let's pray. Yahuah the Most-High Elohim, thank you for every hour you give us. We don't know how much time we have left. We know that our very ruach is on loan from you. You breathed the ruach of life into Adam, and it has passed down to us from generation to generation. And at the very hour of our death, you take it back. Many of us in here tonight, I know for a fact, feel like we've wasted our lives. So many hours living as slaves for the world before we came to your truth. We pray that we would be stewards of the talents you gave us, however many or few, until the moment of Yahusha's making himself known. We pray for your guidance and your mercy, and above all else, that our prayers are heard. We pray all these things in the name of the Father, Yahuah, the Son, Yahushua HaMashiach, and the Ruach HaKodesh. Amen. There was somebody in there that just had to get those toots out. You guys were someone was someone was at the ready. I love it. I could hear it the whole prayer. All right. Well, if you guys can tell, I'm actually a little nervous tonight about the presentation I have to give. This was something that I kind of sat on for a while, and I've talked about my wingman in here, Rob. I started passing notes by him. I started discovering that the subject tonight is the only begotten daughter of Elohim. We know about the only begotten son of Elohim, but you've probably never heard before of the only begotten daughter. I'm actually surprised more people haven't. It's like a text that it's not hidden. It's right in broad daylight. Anybody can read about it, but nobody seems to want to talk about it. And when I announced it earlier this week that I was deciding to go through with it, it was kind of interesting to see everyone's reactions. Like I could feel the tension from everybody. Like, what are you saying, Noel? What is this? And people started guessing. What is the only begotten daughter? Some of you guys got it really wrong, and were guessing wild things, and some of you actually got it, understood what I was saying. So when I first discovered this, I was passing it by Rob, and he's been an incredible research partner. And we started looking for a second witness in Scripture. But as we were doing so, one of the things we're actually going to be talking a lot about tonight, more than the only begotten daughter, is Dinah and Job. And we know Dinah as the 13th sibling. There were 12 patriarchs, all sons of Yaakov. And as we know, Israel had 4 mommies. And Dinah was the one sister amongst 12 brothers. And we know that they were all patriarchs, but Dinah gets left out of the discussion all the time. And that's about to change, because tonight I'm going to show you that Dinah was indeed a great matriarch. And I'm also going to go through the timeline of Job. And that's one of the things I was working on with Rob, is we knew that Job was alive for the Exodus in Egypt. And the big thing is, did Dinah actually marry Job? And can we crunch those numbers and make it work? And then, of course, how does the only begotten daughter actually work into this equation? So this is going to be really good tonight. I'm going to get right into it, because some people here have to go within 45 minutes, and I want to make sure they hear as much as possible. So I dropped a PDF into the general voice chat. Hopefully everyone can bring it up. And I'll give you guys a minute to do so, and then we'll get started. All right. I'm going to assume you guys all have it in front of you. All right. So it is called The Only Begotten Daughter of Elohim. Part 1. Dinah was raped. Nope, not a typo. That's only begotten daughter. Not clickbait either. Somebody really lost their marbles this time, you tell me. And it isn't the person reading these words from your side of the computer screen. Sure, shoot the messenger, why don't you? Because all I can do sometimes is report on this stuff. You will tell me it's heresy to even elicit the possibility. Oh, is it now? Show me in the book where it says so. You can't just make up heresies. The doctrines of men do that all the time, but I expect more from my reader. Either something is scriptural and true, or it's only posing as scripture and is therefore a lie. The question is, given that something claims to be scripturally true, how do you determine whether you're being lied to or not? I have my own answer, but I'm curious as to what yours may be. And really, I'm used to the knee jerk reactions by now. Will every 21st century corporate church employee scoop my caboose to the curb at the suggestion that there may indeed be a divine daughter? Probably. They would have done that anyway some years ago at the mere mention of Torah obedience, had I given them the opportunity. Talk about a bad boy. If you seek to keep the Father's commands, then you are apostate. Think about that long and hard. They'd run Moshe, King David, every patriarch and prophet, as well as Yahushua HaMashiach to the curb for claiming the same. I prefer their company. Wouldn't you agree? That right there should be the qualifier for Scripture. It's what I look for in every single book that I read, including the words of Messiah. If a book insists that keeping our Father's commands produces the blessings in the kingdom to come and is the narrow road to salvation, then I am curious to hear what else its writer has to offer me. Contrarily, if a book throws the law of Yahuwah by the wayside, tells me it's unnecessary, or worse, done away with, then you can be certain that I have no further interest in what it has to say. The speaker is a false something or other, as Torah is necessary for righteous living and cannot be done away with. The book I am referring to does just that. Yosef and Aseneth pronounces the law of Yahuwah as the ultimate truth. And here's a little quote from it. O Yahuwah, my Elohim, to thee I will cry. Hear my supplication, and unto thee will I make confession of my sins, and unto thee will I reveal my transgressions of the law. There it is. The person praying is Aseneth, virgin daughter of Pentephres. You may recognize the name as the woman who became Joseph's woman in Egypt. But before ever getting around to marriage, she is here confessing to and repenting from a lifetime of idol worship. Far more importantly, her guiding light is the Torah. She has finally discovered the truth. She has come to terms with the fact that every other Elohim, including the doctrines they offer, is a child of Satan. And it even says so much in the book. You see how she describes her sins? A transgression, or as transgressing the law. You'd think billions of Catholics and Christians hugging the Bible to their bosom as if their life depends upon it would know better, but they nearly all claim the law is done away with. That's the lie right there. The only instruction in righteous living ever given is no longer a standard. That entire attitude is also testimony to the truth of the word. The darkness cannot comprehend the light. And so, the very few books, and I stress, guys, the very few books in the history of mankind which dare to lead us towards what men despise should be paid careful attention to. And, anyways, Aseneth falls into perfect agreement with Yohanan, the up and coming disciple of Yahusha, who would later write, whosoever commits sin transgresses also the Torah, for sin is the transgression of the Torah. That's from 1 John 3:4. And you guys know all this. See what I mean? Clearly, I can conclude that Yohanan's words are true, just as Messiah's words are true. And like Yosef and Aseneth, I can furthermore take an interest in what else the disciple of Yahusha has to say. And no, Aseneth is not revealed as the only begotten daughter. You were probably thinking that. Well, she's not. The book reference delivers those details, but I'm not quite ready to give them away yet, as there is still so much ground to cover. Be patient, we'll get there. Or just skip ahead to part 4. Well, you guys can't skip ahead yet, but in the video, obviously they can, I suppose, and miss out on a lot of good stuff. It's your diet. I have already established here that there is a family in heaven: father, mother, son. Scripture says so. Why not have a daughter then? It never says he doesn't have a daughter, and it certainly never implies that he wouldn't want one. Contrarily, you will see for yourself where it says he does have a daughter and that she is loved. Just as importantly, why she is concealed from the perverted gaze of the world. If the Bible was written under the conditions of a patriarchal society, then that means heaven itself is patriarchal. The world is no longer patriarchal, but that just tells us how far removed we are from the kingdom of heaven. I mean, seriously, guys, think about that. The father would have every reason to keep his daughter tucked away and concealed until the appropriate hour. How long did he keep his son hidden from knowledge? Quite a while. What happened when he was revealed? Exactly. He was murdered. Imagine then what they would do to his daughter. Rape her. That's just what they do. That and far more terrible things. Every single generation of men would take up arms and then rape her as a spoil of war, if given the opportunity. And that's just for starters. I cringe even mentioning that on paper, but you know they would. I certainly wouldn't be the first to claim that nothing transpires among the children of Israel apart from what has already transpired among the patriarchs. Well, the same thing happened to Yaakov's only begotten daughter. Dinah was raped. You will tell me that Dinah wasn't a patriarch, as only her fathers and brothers were. Patriarchs, true. But this is why the present journey is so important, as you shall as you shall eventually discover that Dinah was in fact a matriarch, and just as much a mother to Israel as Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, Zilpah, uh, Rachel and Sarah before her. I'm sorry, Rebecca and Sarah before her. Specifically, you shall see how Dinah's rape ties into our plan of salvation. Don't believe me? Well, keep reading, or in your case, keep listening. The rape of Dinah is told in Genesis chapter 34. A much longer account, however, can be found in Jasher. How long? It goes on and for several chapters, starting with chapter 33. Don't worry, we're not going through all 7 chapters, but we will read this section from Jasher chapter 33, verses 5 through 13. At that time, some of the women of the inhabitants of the land went to the city of Shechem to dance and rejoice with the daughters of the people of the city. And when they went forth, then Rachel and Leah, the women of Yaakov, with their families also went to behold the rejoicing of the daughters of the city. And Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov, also went along with them and saw the daughters of the city. And they remained there before these daughters while all the people of the city were standing by them to behold their rejoicings. And all the great people of the city were there. And Shechem, the son of, Hamor, the prince of the land, was also standing there to see him. And Shechem beheld Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov, sitting with her mother before the daughters of the city. And the damsel pleased him greatly. And he there asked his friends and his people, saying, whose daughter is that sitting amongst the women, whom I do not know in the city? And they said unto him, surely this is the daughter of Yaakov, the son of Isaac, who has dwelt in the city for some time. And when it was reported that the daughters of the land were going forth to rejoice, she went with her mother and among them, as you see. And Shechem beheld Dinah, the daughter of Yaakov, and when he looked at her soul, became fixed upon Dinah. And he sent and had her taken by force. And Dinah came to the house of Shechem, and he seized her forcibly, and lay with her, and humbled her. And he loved her exceedingly, and placed her in his house. And they came and told the things unto Yaakov. And when Yaakov heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah, Yaakov sent 12 of his servants to fetch Dinah from the house of Shechem. And they went and came to the house of Shechem to take away Dinah from there. And when they came, Shechem, this is this is a terrible scene. I mean, it's so awful. And when they came, Shechem went out to them with his men and drove them from his house, and he would not suffer them to come before Dinah, but Shechem was sitting with Dinah, kissing and embracing her before their eyes. I'll let you read the rest for yourself. As you likely already know by now, 2 of Dinah's 12 brothers, Simon and Levi, trick Shechem and the entire city, which bears his name, into circumcising themselves as a trade agreement, whereas they afterwards might marry each other's sons and daughters. Simon and Levi then enter the city and kill everyone, save for 85 virgin women and a number of men who became their slaves. That's according to Jasher. You don't read women and slaves in Genesis, I don't think. As the narrative in Jasher continues, a confederation of 7 kings, complete with 10,000 fighting men, meet Yaakov and his sons in the field of battle. Hearing of the impending fight, Isaac prays to Yahuah for help. In turn, Yahuah puts fear into the hearts of the Canaanite kings, who all agree that the patriarchs of Israel might annihilate every single one of them, just as they had done to Shechem. Conflict is swayed for now, and it all results from the single act of raping Yaakov's daughter. Part 2. Dinah had a husband. But what of Dinah's child? Oh, haven't you heard? Dinah had a child. The plural of child is children, which is most certainly attributable to Dinah, and she had 11 in all, 7 sons and 4 daughters. The first child derived from a Canaanite rapist and resulted in a girl. Her last 3 daughters are listed in the Septuagint with the given names of Day or Yemima, Yemima, Cassia, and Karen Hapuk, meaning Amalthea's horn. Somebody on the internet has probably done their due diligence by reading the Septuagint and is already pausing to interrupt me. Whoa, wrong again. Those are Job's daughters. I'm very aware of that fact. They're also Dinah's daughters. So I'm reading from Job 42 in the Septuagint, the LXX. And there were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the first Day, and the second Cassia, and the third Amalthea's horn. And there were not found in comparison with the daughters of Job fairer than they in all the world. And their father gave them an inheritance among their brethren. Nothing of Dinah was mentioned among Job's children, you explain. Yeah, well, she's there in scripture. You just have to dig for these things. Often, the answers don't come that easy. It's more like one thing leads to another. That's how breadcrumb trails often go. Every book is written differently. You read something peculiar and then set it aside, waiting patiently for answers. Scripture was written that way, so as to make us work for the truth. So here's Job 42 in the Septuagint. This man is described in the Syriac book living in the land of Osis on the borders of Idumea and Arabia. And his name before was Jobab. And having taken an Arabian wife, he begot a son whose name was Enon. And he himself was the son of his father Zer, one of the sons of Esau, and of his mother Basora, so that he was the 5th from Abram. Still not reading anything about Dinah, but we learned something. A few things, actually. The land of Uz was located on the borders of Idumea and Arabia. Idumea would be the land of Edom, just south of the Dead Sea. His first wife was Arabian, and his father's name was Zer. In turn, Zer was a son of Esau. Seeing as how Job was the 5th from Abraham, however, there had to be 2 more unmentioned fathers between Esau and Zer. Still pits us in the same timeline, though, as Dinah was the 3rd from Abraham. Was Dinah older? Probably, much older. But this is old. But before this is over, that's a misprint there. Before this is over, you shall see why the 2 were a match made in heaven. An entire year ago, I discovered another morsel in the Aramaic Targum's account of the Exodus, which at the time needed set aside as I didn't really know what to do with the information. There's actually an untold number of savory treats in the Targum's Exodus account, but the one applicable to this narrative can be found during the 7th plague, when Moshe and Aaron rained down Yahuah's fire and hail. Follow along. Behold, at this time tomorrow I will cause to come down from the treasures of the heavens a mighty hail, the like of which hath never been in Mizraim, since the day when men were settled upon it until now. But now send, gather together thy flocks, and all that thou hast in the field. For upon all men and cattle that are found in the field, and not gathered together within the house, will the hail come down, and they will die. Job, who reverenced the word of Yahuah, among the servants of Pharaoh, gathered together his servants and his flocks within the house. Exodus chapter 9, 18 through 20, Targum. Look at us, already back on the Job bandwagon again. Job was present during the Exodus, and it would only make sense that he would. The man who was told to gird his loins up like a man while simultaneously dealing with the presence of Yahuah in a tornado was blessed by witnessing the power of the Most High at work. You're probably wondering what Job was doing in Egypt, though. I was too, the first time I read it. I therefore decided to do a little desert combing, and this is what I uncovered. This is from the Testament of Job, chapter 1. For I am one of the sons of Esau. There it is again. My brother is Nahor, and your mother is Dinah. By her have I become your father. For my first wife died with my other 10 children in bitter death. Hear now, children, and I will reveal unto you what happened to me. I was a very rich man living in the east in the land of Uz, and before Yahuah had named me Job, I was called Jobab. Wow, there's a lot of misprints in that scripture verse. That's because I type all these out by hand. Found her. The mother of Day, Cassia, and Amalthea's horn was Dinah. You didn't believe me, did you? But there it is. It also says that Job was of the sons of Esau, but we've already established that fact. Notice how he says on his deathbed that he lived in the east in the land of Uz, past tense, and that his first wife, the Arabian one, had died. It's not like Job's presence in Egypt is completely unknown, as the man from Uz was twice recorded in Jasher, in chapter 66, verse 15, and 67, verse 42, giving counsel to Pharaoh. We at least know now why he landed in Egypt, because he married a Hebrew woman. That's impossible, as the math is all wrong, you tell me. Oh, is it? The Israelites were slaves in Egypt for 400 years, you say, and so Job couldn't have possibly married Dinah and still live to see their exodus. Bummer. Very well then, we shall have to consort to crunching numbers. But first things first, the Israelites were not in Egypt for 400 years. The Masoretic text has it all wrong. But let's read it anyways, just to remain absolutely certain. Exodus 12:40 tells us, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. That's according to the King James Version. That's pretty straightforward, you tell me, and proves me wrong yet again. I'll admit it. I've been backed into a corner on this one, as it does appear as though the sons of Yasharel were in Egypt for 400 years. It's not what Jasher says, and if we further scrutinize the same text, not even the Masoretic holds to the 400-year narrative. The genealogies given to us claim otherwise. Follow along. So this comes from Exodus chapter 6, verses 16 through 20. And these are the names of the son of Levi according to their generations. Gershon and, can anyone pronounce that? I can't. Kohath and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 130 and 7 years. The sons of Gershon, Livni, and Shimi, according to their families. And the sons of Kohath, Amram, and Yitshar, and Shevron, and Uziel. And the years of the life of Kohath were 130 and 3 years. And the sons of Merari, Malchi, and Mushi. These are the families of Levi according to their generations. And Abram took him Jochebed, his father's sister, to be his woman, and she bore him Aaron and Moshe. And the years of the life of Abram were 130 and 7 years. I apologize for butchering those names, but you guys know I got the California tongue. There are only 2 generations between Levi and Moshe. Did they each live 200 years before having children? They most certainly may have gone 100 years before conceiving the next generation, but 200 is a stretch. His father is Amram, and grandfather is Kohath, making Levi a great-grandfather. Tell me how that makes 400 years again. We can trace the genealogy of the other tribes and come up with the same results. Presently, however, the Exodus Masoretic agrees with Jasher. So Jasher chapter 67 says, there was a man in the land of Mitzrayim of the seed of Levi, whose name was Amram, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, the son of Yasharel. And this man went and took a woman, namely Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, his father's sister. And she was 126 years old. And he came unto her, and the woman conceived and bore a daughter, and she called her name Miriam, because in those days the Mitzrayim had embittered the lives of the children of Yasharel. And she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Aaron. For in the days of her conception, Pharaoh began to spill the blood of the male children of Yasharel. You see, the text agrees, just not on the number of years. The actual number of years they were in Egypt from Yaakov's arrival to Moshe's departure was precisely 210 years. But we'll arrive at that conclusion shortly. Also, Yocheved, the daughter of Levi, was 126 years old when she conceived Miriam. Close to the 200-year count between generations, sort of, but clearly no cigar. What this means is Moshe was the great grandson of Levi, according to his father, but according to his mother, only a grandson. Incredible. For whatever reason, the Hebrew Masoretic has chosen to scrub the line regarding Yasharel's tenure in Egypt, but both the much older Greek Septuagint and the Samaritan Pentateuch have included it. All right, so you can just see here. I'll just read from I'll read from the LXX. Exodus 12:40. And the sojourning of the children of Israel while they sojourned in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan was 430 years. So you can see there they've added and the land of Canaan. And anyways, the Sefer Bible, my go-to text, has corrected the error in the Masoretic. It says again, Exodus 12:40, now the sojourning of the children of Yasharel who dwelt in the land of Mitzrayim and in the land of Canaan, they and their fathers were 430 years. Once again, the Aramaic Targum not only agrees with the most ancient sources, it fills in the missing pieces. So now we're reading from Exodus 12:40 again, but from the Targum. And the days of the dwelling of the sons of Israel in Mizraim were 30 weeks of years, 30 times 7 years, which is the sum of 210 years. But the number of 430 years had passed away since Yahuah spake to Abraham in the hour that he spake with him on the 15th of Nisan, between the divided parts, until the day that they went out of Mizraim. Ah, finally, answers in Genesis. There were precisely 400 revolutions of the sun in the zodiac between the 15th of Nisan, when Yahuah made a covenant with Abraham, and the 15th of Nisan, when Yasharel departed Egypt. But more specifically, 230 years of those 400 were spent sojourning in Egypt. The next hurdle we need to overcome is the matter of Job's age at the time of his death. Once again, we are given conflicting numbers. So the Masoretic says this: after this, lived Job 140 years and saw his sons and his sons' sons, even 4 generations. So Job died being old and full of days. Well, the LXX, the Septuagint, the same scripture verse, Job 42:16 through 17, says, and Job lived after affliction 170 years, as opposed to 140 years, and all the years he lived were 240. And Job saw his sons and his sons' sons, the 4th generation. And Job died, an old man and full of days. And it is written that he will rise again with those when Yahuah raises up. The Masoretic and Septuagint fail to agree again. Why am I not surprised? The Masoretic does not tell us how many years Job lived before the plagues, but only that he lived 140 years afterwards. Contrarily, the LXX claims 170 years afterwards, making for a grand total of 240. Therefore, knowing that we have 230 years to work with, Job may have been 10 years old and living in the neighborhood of Edom when the patriarchs entered Egypt. How old was Dinah when she entered Egypt? Hard to tell. Job definitely married an older woman, though. More numbers crunching is needed. Let's try to figure this out, shall we? Here's what we do know. Dinah was the last born of Leah's children, following brothers Reuben, Simon, Levi, Yehudah, and finally Issachar and Zebulun. Her birth would have only preceded Rachel's conception of Joseph and Benjamin. Well, Zebulun was the closest brother to her age, and he died 114 years old, 72 years after their arrival in Egypt. It says so right here in Jasher chapter 61. And Zebulun, the son of Yaakov, died in that year. That is the 72nd year of the going down of Yasharel to Mitzrayim, and Zebulun died 114 years old. and was put into a coffin and given in the hands of his children. Her next closest sibling is Yosef, same father but different mother. We read, and it came to pass after this that Joseph died in that year, the 71st year of Yasharel going down to Mitzrayim. And Joseph was 110 years old when he died in the land of Mitzrayim. And all his brethren and all his servants rose up, and they embalmed Joseph, as was their custom. And his brethren and all Mitzrayim mourned over him for 70 days. Jasher chapter 59, 25 through 26. What this means is Zebulun and Joseph were born 3 years apart. We know that Dinah was born between them. Zebulun furthermore entered Egypt at 42 years of age, give or take so many months. Joseph was 39 when his brothers entered. We can therefore conclude that Dinah was anywhere from 39 to 41 years old at the same entry point. If you need to see how I punched the numbers in on the calculator, I simply subtracted 71 from 110 and 72 from 114. Now, assuming for the moment that Job was only 10 years old when Dinah entered Egypt at 40 years of age, making her 3 decades his elder, she would have to be at a minimal 100 years old when the two decided to have a family. Probably closer to 110, seeing as how his plagues lasted for 7 years. Despite the fact that her siblings would begin to die off within the decade, it is doable, considering how Yocheved, the mother of Moshe, was 126 years old when she began to have her family. That's pretty incredible to think about, when Sarah was much younger. Yasher even records that he visited his mother at 18 years of age, making Yocheved in the whereabouts of 147. That's pretty old. Did Dinah live that long? We are not told. But throw in a set of twins or two, she could have easily produced 10 children for Job, with a year or two rest in between, before reaching the age that Yocheved even started, given a quarter of a century head start. I'm not done crunching those numbers yet. We can do better than this. You see, I had mentioned that Job's plagues lasted for 7 years. That source material derives from the Testament of Job, wherein we read, "Thus I endured for 7 years, sitting on a dunghill outside of the city while being plague stricken." The Testament of Job 5:9. Well, the same book gives completely different years to the life of Job. Testament of Job, chapter 12. He had lived before his plague 85 years, and after the plague, he took the double share of all. Hence, also his years he doubled, which is 170. Thus, he lived altogether 255 years. Well. The timeline is looking more and more interesting given our present source material. If there were 240 years between Yaakov's entry and Moshe's exodus, and Job lived long enough to witness the Most High at work, then the number 255 works out to something like 15 years of age to match Dinah's 40. Though their age are closer, on closer scrutiny, the adjusted timeline increases Dinah's childbearing years closer to 110 or 120 rather than 100. Still doable, though. The miracle of Job is that the man who defied the plagues of Satan, choosing rather to praise Yahuah, was blessed with a second life. Not one of Dinah's brothers lived to see 170 the first time. Job lived 2 separate lifetimes, 85 and 170 respectively, equaling together 255. Why couldn't Dinah receive a second lot as well? Her first shot at marriage was completely crippled by the rape of a Canaanite. At a glance, and seeing how Job's second set of children were never included in anyone's biblical lineage, as far as I can tell, one might conclude that Dinah was just as easily snubbed from any future genealogies. Seems like everyone else comes to those conclusions, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. Like her patriarchal brothers, Dinah was indeed a great matriarch. After all, her relationship with her captor and rapist, albeit a brief one, produced a child, a daughter, and you're about to find out who. In part 2, actually, it'll be part 3 now, we shall try our best to track down the mysterious woman's whereabouts. Oh, I haven't forgotten about the Only-Begotten Daughter either. Even she comes into the narrative. And just as importantly, you shall demonstratively see how the two of them figures into the story of Israel's salvation. Part 3. Aseneth had a father. Duh, of course, Aseneth had a father, as nobody in the history of the world is exempt from one. Understand, though, what I'm saying. The book of Joseph and Asenath tells us that Pentephres was her father. You will tell me that is incorrect information, as you did a bit of fact checking, and Potiphar was really her father. Also correct, but that is only the half of it. Biologically, neither Pentephres nor Potiphar was her true father. If you're curious as to who that may be, then keep reading. Genesis 41 through 40, verse 45. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name, I can't even pronounce that, Sopnath Penich. And he gave him to be his woman, Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph was out over all the land of Mitzrayim. See, Potipharah or Potipharah. It's just a slightly strengthened version of Potiphar. Same person. Joseph later married the daughter of the very man whom he slaved for and whose wife had the hots for him. Jubilees agrees in the name and names him Potiphar. Jubilees chapter 40 states, and the king called Joseph to be his woman, the daughter of Potiphar, the daughter of the priest of On, the chief cook. Contrarily, Joseph in Asenath names a certain Pentephres as Asenath's father. Contradictions. Now, there was in that city a man, a satrap of Pharaoh, and this man was chief of all Pharaoh's satraps and lords, and he was very rich and wise and generous, and he was Pharaoh's counselor, and his name was Pentephres, and he was the priest of Heliopolis of On. And Pentephres had a virgin daughter of about 18 years of age, tall and beautiful and graceful, more beautiful than any other virgin in the land. Joseph and Asenath, chapter 1. So, which is it? Was Asenath's father Potiphar or Pentephres? I have just given you the answer. Both. Potiphar and Pentephres are just two different names of the same person, as they are both listed as the priest of On. If Joseph and Asenath were a forgery, you would think the writer would at least try and match up the father with Moshe's naming of him. The thing is, though, Moshe was given many names. In the Asher, his father Amram called him Chabar. His mother Jochebed called him Yekuthiel. His sister Miriam called him Yered. His brother Aaron called him Abi Zanuch. His grandfather called him Abigdor. His nurses called him Abi Salcho, and his Israelite contemporaries apparently called him Shemaiah. It was Pharaoh's daughter who called him Moshe. The name stuck. I don't know about you guys, that's a lot of names to answer to. Even Joseph was given multiple names, as Pharaoh called him, again, Sopnath Panich. So why wouldn't Potiphar have multiple names? It only seems likely that a priest would. It also gives the book more authenticity. Joseph and Asenath even agrees upon the manner in which Asenath was given to Joseph by Potiphar. I mean, Pentephres for a wife. We have already gleaned that it was Pharaoh who handed her over. Well, here we read in Joseph and Asenath chapter 20. And Pentephres said to Joseph, "Tomorrow I will invite the lords and satraps of Egypt, and I will celebrate your wedding, and you shall take Asenath as your wife." And Joseph said, "First, I must tell Pharaoh about Asenath, because he is my father, and he will give Asenath as my wife himself." Notice how Joseph calls Pharaoh his father. Obviously, he cannot possibly be referring to his biological father, as Joseph and Yaakov for a father and the 11 brothers who dropped him into a scorpion pit. Lots of adoptive fathers in this story then. Potiphar slash Pentephres, it's just another that we can add to the list. Asenath was adopted. Joseph and Asenath never says so, but again, scripture is never under that obligation, nor is it written that way. You are expected to search these things out for validation and the purposes of personal enrichment. We are, however, given one very important clue. Joseph in Asenath chapter 1 says, "And she, Asenath, was quite unlike the daughters of Egypt, but in every respect like the daughters of the Hebrews. And she was as tall as Sarah, and as beautiful as Rebekah, and as fair as Rachel. And this virgin's name was Asenath." From this we glean that she did not share the same features as her Egyptian parents, or her Egyptian neighbors for that matter. Contrarily, she looked very much like a Hebrew woman, like Sarah, her great-great-grandmother, like Rebecca, her great-grandmother, Rachel, her grandmother. Sounds like she was a Hebrew to me, wouldn't you agree? But who is her father and mother then? The Aramaic Targum once again fills in the missing details. Genesis chapter 46 Targum states the following. And to Joseph was born two sons in the land of Mizraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Dinah, educated in the house of Potiphera, prince of Tanis, Beer, Manasseh, and Ephraim. There it is. Asenath was only educated in the house of Potiphera. It says right there that Dinah was her mother. Job must be her father then. Nope. Sorry, he's not. The Targum tells us who her father is, and he's not Job. And Pharaoh called the name of Joseph the man who revealeth mysteries, and he gave him Asenath, whom Dinah had borne to Shechem. And the wife of Potiphera, Prince Rabbah of Tanis, had brought up, and to be his wife. And Joseph went forth ruler of the land of Mizraim. Genesis 41:45 Targum. The true father of Asenath was Shechem the Canaanite. Mystery solved. The girl was only brought up in Potiphar's household. How she arrived there, we are not told. But that in itself is unimportant when the implications here are huge. Manasseh and Ephraim were blended with the Canes. Her father, you see, was a Ham. Technically, the Egyptians were also Hams and therefore descendants of the Canes. Therefore, given another scenario and the course of nature, Potiphera would have delivered the same outcome as he too, by default, was likely a Ham. But with Shechem, we are given no illusions. There is another reference that I can find to Dinah and Asenath in the Targum. The scene involves Yaakov blessing Joseph's two sons. Timing is everything. So this comes from Genesis 48, the Targum. And Israel looked at the sons of Joseph and said, From whom are these born to thee? And Joseph answered his father, They are my sons, which the word of Yahuah gave me according to this writing, according to which I took Asenath, the daughter of Dinah, thy daughter, to be my wife. And he said, Bring them now near to me, and I will bless them. You're likely familiar with the scene. Knowing that his father is ready to die, Joseph places Manasseh under Yaakov's right hand, being the elder, and Ephraim under his left. Yaakov crosses his arms, however, so as to place his right hand upon Ephraim's head, the younger. In this way, Ephraim receives a special blessing. Joseph was at first infuriated by this, even going so far as to think of Yaakov's reverse blessing as something evil. But you and I know by now that very little went down in personal lives of the patriarchs as they expected. Quick history lesson. Centuries later, Yahuah would hand the house of Yasharel a bill of divorce. Why? The northern tribes wanted to worship the pagan Elohim. More so, they wanted to be Goyim. And when it came down to it, Yahuah no longer wanted to be their Elohim. So he delivered them to the desires of their heart. Yasharel was vomited from the land and cast into the surrounding nations, while only brothers Yehuda and Levi remained. In effect, they became Goyim. I've said this dozens of times already, but the plan, which started with the disinheriting of humanity at Babel, was indeed a brilliant one. It was only after the death of Yahushua HaMashiach that the Goyim were grafted back in. And now that's a little debatable. We can all debate that one sentence there. But don't let that distract you. And who were they grafted back through? The tribe of Ephraim. The right hand of Yaakov, you see, is a representation of Messiah, who is himself at the right hand of Yahuah, the Most-High Elohim. Though Ephraim is dispersed among the nations, Messiah's hand rests upon him to this very day. While in the act of crossing his arms, Yaakov formed an X. That would be the letter Tav in the Hebrew alphabet. The letter symbolizes a sign or a covenant. And how did Yahusha refer to himself? In Revelation 22:13, he said he was the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Whether or not Yosef or his boys understood the profound significance at the time, his portion as well as Dinah's was sealed with the sign of the completed work of Messiah. That happened to no other child but theirs. And now you know, Dinah was indeed the matriarch of a great many people. The Goyim returning to Yasharel. Also, the plausible reason why Yosef received a double portion of Yaakov's inheritance. Yaakov had not thought to overlook his only begotten daughter. Part 4, this is the part you guys showed up for. Her name is Penitence. I just gave it all away. It's in the title. The only begotten daughter of Elohim has a name, and it's revealed to us as Penitence. As you likely already know by now, the nod comes to us by way of Yosef and Asenath. Seeing as how this is the fourth part in an ever expansive paper, seriously, guys, it did not start out like this. You've been waiting patiently, or not. Perhaps you have skipped an entire 22 pages by its current count, forsaking any and all insight into my genealogical research. Fine. As I mentioned earlier, it's your diet. However, if you did manage the long and winding scenic route to arrive at our present whereabouts, then I hope you are as excited by everything in the rearview mirror as I am. Also, blessed for having known. And no, I won't repeat those conclusions here, as you will either have to backtrack or commit to your own investigative research. That is all for now. Anyways, I have but only one scriptural witness to the existence of penitence in heaven. I know. We are to seek out two witnesses. Before committing myself to writing this paper, I had another sleuth, we all know who he is, scour scripture looking for one, and nada. It's why I started out saying I'm only here to report on my findings. But also, the importance of Torah was reported on. According to Yosef and Asenath, the entire role of penitence is to petition on behalf of those who repent of their sins and turn in obedience to Torah. You can read it for yourself here. This is from Yosef and Asenath, chapter 15. Take heart, Asenath. Lo, Yahuah has given you to Yosef to be his bride, and he shall be your bridegroom. And you shall no more be called Asenath, but city of refuge shall be your name. For many nations shall take refuge in you, and under your wings shall many peoples find shelter. And within your walls, those who give their allegiance to Elohim in penitence will find security. For penitence is the Most High's daughter, and she entreats the Most High on your behalf every hour, and on behalf of all who repents. For he is the father of penitence, and she the mother of virgins, and every hour she petitions him for those who repent. For she has prepared a heavenly bridal chamber for those who love her, and she will look after them forever. And penitence is herself a virgin, very beautiful and pure and chaste and gentle. And Elohim Most High loves her, and all his angels do her reverence. Again, Joseph Nasina, chapter 15, 5 through 8. The implications here are staggering. You know how Yahushua HaMashiach serves the set apart ones in his Father's kingdom? Well, penitence does as well, eternally. But there's more. I took out the highlighter so that you wouldn't miss it. She has prepared a heavenly bridal chamber for those who love her. I have lots of thoughts on that passage right there, but for the time being, it's probably best that I let you figure it out for yourself. Here's a hint though. Yahusha is also a bridegroom. And no, Yahusha will not be marrying his sister if that's what you're thinking, as that would break Torah. Again, come to your own conclusions as to what it's saying. Also, the reason as to why Yahuwah will not openly reveal his only begotten daughter, except for the wedding day, is given to us in the narrative. I certainly wouldn't be the first to claim that Joseph is a representative of Messiah. Well, the same can be said here. In Yosef and Asenath, Yosef doubles for the son of Elohim, while Asenath plays the part of his daughter. In fact, the entire book can be taken as an allegory for the marriage of Messiah with Yasharel. Follow along. Asenath is described as a virgin, tall and beautiful and graceful, more beautiful than any other virgin in the land. She lives in a tower ornamented with riches. Seven virgins attend to her, all of whom were born on the same day. That's seven, if you prefer actual numbers. How many ruachs proceed from the Most High? You probably already know the answer to that. But if not, seven. One of them is the Ruach HaKodesh, by the way, wisdom. But I digress. No man, woman, or child has sat on her bed, not even her virgin servants. Perhaps the greatest clue to whom she symbolizes is given to us when we are told that the fame of her beauty has spread throughout all the land, even to its remotest corners, so that all the sons of lords and kings alike sought her hand in marriage, even to the point that they would fight amongst themselves in order to win her hand. Even after their marriage, Pharaoh's son attempts to murder Joseph and steal her for himself, you see? The catch being, up until that point, nobody had ever physically seen her in person, aside from her parents and what is described to us as a dead brother. Fascinating. Asenath, however, detested all strange men, wanting nothing to do with them, just as Yaakov had instructed his sons when choosing women. On the day she met Joseph for the first time, we read the following description. And it gave Pentephres and his wife great joy to see their daughter Asenath adorned as the bride of Elohim. And they took out all the good things they had brought from their estate in the country, and they gave them to their daughter. Joseph and Asenath 4:2. She then watches Joseph approach from the east as though he himself is the sun. So from Joseph and Asenath chapter 5. And the gates of the court that looked east were opened, and Joseph came in, sitting in Pharaoh's viceroy's chariot. And there were 4 horses yoked together, white as snow, with golden reins. And the chariot was covered over with gold. And Joseph was wearing a marvelous white tunic, and the robe wrapped around him was purple, and made of linen woven with gold. There was a golden crown on his head, and all round the crown were 12 precious stones. And above the stones, 12 golden rays, and a royal scepter was in his right hand, and he held an olive branch stretched out, and there was much fruit on it. And Joseph came into the court, and the gates were shut, and strangers, whether men or women, remained outside because the gatekeepers had shut the doors. That's messianic right there. We even get to see the 12 sons of Yasharel, the 12 gates leading into Jerusalem, as well as Yahusha's 12 Talmudim represented in his crown. The closing of Potiphar's gates makes this a perfect companion to Yahusha's parable of the wise and foolish virgins. All strangers remained on the outside. Sometimes I have a difficult time ending these papers. Should I close with clever wording or leave off with a cliffhanger? This is one of those occasions. Actually, I have several more pages to address in scribbled notes, but now that I think upon it, very few, if any of them, further develop the journey we've been on. Our knowledge of Dinah and Asenath, Job, for an added bonus, as well as the only begotten daughter of Elohim, has peaked. Mostly. From here, the road descends. So I will perhaps write a few more lines and then press the publish button. Here it goes, the closing notes. Asenath was a lifelong idolater. It only makes sense that she would be, as her adopted father was a priest of On. Asking why Yaakov would allow his granddaughter to be raised by pagans is a very good question, because Asenath was the offspring of rape, conceived out of wedlock, and goyim from the beginning. It would take Yosef to play the part of his redeemer. I don't know about you, but that just sent me chills. You cannot still very well be a child of Cain if you're grafted in. Those are the rules, and I didn't write them. Asenath is my matriarch, probably yours as well, seeing as how my readers are grafted in through Ephraim, hopefully. If so, then she is telling our story. Somebody will surely argue that Asenath cannot possibly be a representative of Yah's only begotten daughter, then. Well, how so? As we have read, the very role of penitence is to pray on our behalf before her Father, petitioning those who have fallen away into the strange worship of the Goyim and yet seek to return via repentance. Asenath is a complete reversal of Hava, our first matriarch. Hava fell from grace, but Asenath, born a half Hebrew and Goyim, was capable of making up her mind and restoring paradise lost through obedience to the word. Think about that. Yosef never would have married her had she refused Torah when it was offered. Try to understand what I'm saying here. What I'm not saying is that Yahuah the Most-High Elohim does have a daughter, only that I see no reason why he couldn't, or wouldn't for that matter. You've heard of the occult axiom, as above, so below. What if I told you that's just the watchers perverting the mysteries of heaven again? The same principle applies to Scripture. Our prayers are to restore earth as it is in heaven. No, cer- certainly our actions should reflect the will of heaven. As above, so below. Why would Yahuwah expect anything of us other than that is not for? I'm sorry. Why would Yahuwah expect anything of us then that is not first modeled in heaven? Out of the Father came the feminine ruach, like Hava from our earthly father Adam. It's the same thing. Likewise, Yahuwah and wisdom modeled a family, an only begotten son, Yahusha. His name means salvation. Didn't Adam and Hava have a daughter? They did. All right, guys. Well, that's the conclusion of that paper. Thank you for sticking out that long read. It probably didn't give you all the answers you were looking for. I'm not sure if that's what you all expected. But hopefully you learned something in this. This was quite the research paper. I mean, I was, you know, spending many, many long hours on this, trying to crunch all the numbers and figure out Job and Dinah, and and just learning that, you know, Ephraim is indeed through Dinah. That was really exciting for me to actually discover. I've never heard anyone talk about that ever. Maybe that's common knowledge. I don't know. It was new for me. And as we saw here, next week I was thinking we should actually read the book Yosef and Aseneth. It is an amazing, amazing read. It's an amazing book, and it straight out says that, you know, he does have a daughter. But if I guess what I should have addressed more here is that it's not it's read as literal. Like, it's not figurative. It's not just saying, oh, there's this syrupy Hallmark card kind of concept of penitence, and it's like, no, it says that, like, the angels do her reverence in heaven, and that you get this idea that, you know, no man has ever seen her before. You know, she's like a scene at this tower up in heaven. It's fascinating. So, anyways, let me know you guys' thoughts. Thank you all for hanging in there. Did anyone have any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Well,
Heresy?
I liked how you closed it. You were saying, "Hey, here we go," and then that really last few sentences, how you wrapped it up, how you shared, modeled. How did you say that? Um, this is modeled on Father, wisdom, the Holy Spirit, and the Son. And
Right.
so here's his, yes.
Right. The idea is that our prayer is on earth as it is in heaven, right? And that's our prayer. We want heaven to come down to earth, and that, you know, that's where you see with the occult the axiom as above so below. We see it on tarot cards, all sorts of stuff. Essentially, it's the same thing. We they want the what happens in heaven or above to correspond with earth, and we want the same thing. They come from very different perspectives, and one is very perverse, but the concept is the same. And we have these family units that are set up for us. A father and a mother get together. They have a son and a daughter. Maybe they have one son or one daughter or two sons, but you get my point. And Adam and Eve had the same. And we see how, you know, the way Hava came out of Adam is the same way wisdom proceeded from the father. We see all this stuff modeled. So, anyways, I found that really fascinating when I stumbled upon that scripture verse, and we have been searching to find a second witness. But like I stated in there, just to reiterate this point for you guys, that it would make total sense to me that now keep in mind, Yahusha was not revealed until a certain date. Many, many, obviously, centuries went by without people knowing. And it seems to be implied in here that uh, that this so-called only begotten daughter will not be revealed until like the very end. You know, on the wedding day, which is the whole metaphor of Joseph and Aseneth. It seems to be a metaphor for human history and the coming of the Messiah to nab his people.
So what you're saying is we won't see her until Yahusha's return.
According to this, if this is legitimate, that is correct. And, you know, there was so much more I could have said. I think we will read this book next week. And anybody who is familiar with the book of Jasher will go like, oh, it's almost like so only some people will get this. But back in the 80s, there was a famous TV miniseries called The Thornbirds. And it had Richard Chamberlain, who was like a total babe to a lot of the women out there, and he was like the Catholic priest or whatever that has the love affair with the 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 shepherd, the New Zealand shepherd woman or whatever. I only know this because my mom loved that and she watched it endlessly on VHS. But I remember in the 90s they came out with the Thornbirds, The Missing Years, in which, you know, like it took place in the middle of the story, and the, Joseph and Aseneth actually plays out like Jasher, The Missing Years. and you see in there where the patriarchs are like going to war in Egypt. It's like it's pretty epic. And it makes total sense when you read Jasher, and like Yehuda roars like a lion and all the women in Egypt miscarry. And I think it's is it Issachar, or who is it that who can like, or he can like run on top of, like, he runs so fast he could run on top of like corn and wheat to not break them, and stuff like this. And so these guys are like these like oh, Naphtali, yeah, it was Naphtali. And these guys are these mighty warriors, and so you see this come up in Joseph and Asenath. And the idea is that once Asenath is revealed to the world does want to go to war with her, and take her from Joseph and have her for herself. And that's the whole history lesson here, that this is why Yahuah will not reveal his only begotten daughter, because it would be like Helen of Troy or something like this, the cast 1,000 ships, like everyone would go to war to have her for themselves.
Yeah, I think you did an excellent job with tying it all together. I know the last time you spoke on this, you've now been able to further develop the story and give that backdrop and tie in this, at least this single witness of writing. So yeah, I know I couldn't find any other further findings on it, but I did spend quite a bit of time looking for it, and maybe one day. I just don't want to search too many books that might be way out there. I'm trying to stick to as close as legitimate books as possible.
Well, what's interesting though is that within the book Yosef and Asenath, you get a lot of second witnesses, right? I mean, I was going through a lot of them through Job, the testimony of Job, Jasher. There was a lot of different books that tie in the same things that are essentially being said here. But yeah, what Rob and I were unable to find is any book that said again that the Most High has a daughter named Penitence. Um, we know he has a son named Salvation, Yeshua or Yahusha, or I guess Yah saves. But yeah, we haven't found a second witness on that. I feel like a lot of people in this room right now are like, what just happened?
Yeah, I think it's surely one to contemplate. It's a contemplator. No, I think it's that great pause to like take it in, and like, because how you shared it, yes, it makes sense why it's not revealed yet, or partially.
And
And
Hank, go ahead.
no, they please.
Oh, I was just going to answer. I thought you were finished. I was just going to answer Hank that yes, actually, Asenath is Yosef's niece. He actually married his sister's daughter. At what point did he figure that out, though? Because in the marriage, like I said, I showed multiple sources where it all says that Asenath was the daughter of Dinah. Multiple sources on this. But the thing is that at what point did Yosef and at what point did Asenath figure out who her mother was? Because um, in the book, Yosef and Asenath, she doesn't seem to figure that out. Like, we're not giving that indication. And at what point did Yosef go, I just married my sister's niece? It's almost like something from Star Wars, like, right? Like Luke and Leia have the hots for each other. But obviously this is not breaking Torah, as you can marry your niece.
Like I said, it's one to contemplate on. And as you were sharing possible reasons why, and as you're sharing begotten daughter, what is the connotations of that? Because we're going back to her mother being Dinah, or coming through Dinah. So are we talking a virgin birth or not?
Oh, okay. So I'm not saying Asenath is the only begotten daughter of Yah. No, I mean, wait, I'm not sure what the question is, because Asenath is the child of rape.
Right. It's her. Then it's the next part you're sharing is clearer.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, according. Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I was just going to state that in the reading in the book, it's giving a comparison of Asenath to Penitence in that sense, and there this because of the similarities, it's going off of the whole explanation of Asenath into this Penitence similarities of the daughter of Yah. So I think that's all it's doing is
That's
tying.
that's where it comes in. Okay, I think you really just cleared it up for me
Yeah, I think it
further
was.
because
I think it was probably. I realized that the conclusion, the last few paragraphs, were probably confusing for a lot of people because what I was doing now is I was describing a book which I don't know if anyone in this room had actually read yet, and so while we only get a snippet, like a page describing this only begotten daughter, you get the strong sense in the book that that Yosef represents Yahusha, the only begotten son, and Aseneth is a representative of the only begotten daughter. And
oh,
and
all right,
so you
very clear now. Excellent.
it, yeah, representative, not the she is not the
Right.
actual only begotten daughter, just
So
as much as
what you're correct. So what you're sharing is that's where through that, as Rob was just sharing, through that representation that we that comparison that we now hear this story that there is a begotten daughter because that's oh my, and that's where you're looking for. Well, are there any other references to her
Right.
penitence?
Yeah, that's what we were trying to seek out because the story alone in itself does not necessarily break Torah and is very could be very possible. We're not saying it is, but it could be very possible. So that's why it's so intriguing that this possibility definitely could lay out there, and sharing this is just mind provoking. So loving it.
Well, what's interesting is the more we've gone into the Targum and the Septuagint and seen more of the original words and what they mean, like the Holy Spirit, um, that maybe we're going to find those references too. Like we know that Yahusha is being revealed all through the Old Testament,
yeah,
and maybe this is the case also.
that's a interesting. It looks like Michael, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to see if you can speculate on what you think the event is when she is revealed, because it's the marriage supper of the Lamb, and men can't marry Yahusha, via the Torah, and then the New Jerusalem is also called the bride as well. So, what do you speculate as far as her revealing in eternity? I guess.
Well, that's yeah. So that's a whole. A lot of us are well aware of Rob Skiba's research on Ephraim awakening, and this. So we have the idea that New Jerusalem coming down is a bride, and so a lot of people will say, no, 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 the church isn't the bride; it's New Jerusalem. The thing is, though, is that we can see the research that there is a clear. It is uh, Israel is clearly a bride, and Yahuah divorced his bride, and we see the whole idea of being brought back in through Ephraim, which is again interesting because it takes us back to Dinah and the rape and Yosef and Asenath and all that. Um, and I just want to point out, I really think that I stumbled upon this, and again, I have never seen anyone comment on this before, but we all know that Joseph got two inheritances. But one of them, I think one of them is because of Dinah. I think Dinah got one of those, and but that's what's so special about Ephraim. And so there is this idea that we as we are, we were divorced. We are right now in the diaspora, because of the sins of our fathers, because they rebelled against the Most High, and we ourselves have sinned. And Deuteronomy promises that in the later days, that those of us who will remember His name and call out to Him and be obedient to His ways, that He'll be a merciful Elohim, and He will bring us back in. We're waiting for that event, but there is, and I'm getting I'm getting to a point here, and I believe this is one of the reasons why Hebrews says that, like, if we walk away after having known Him, that Yahushua is not coming back to die again. Yahushua is the bridegroom. He always was the bridegroom from the very beginning. I believe from the very beginning, the covenant that was cut with Abraham, it was Yahushua doing it. It was the word of Yahuwah doing it. It's always been Yahushua. He's always been the bridegroom. And so the point is, what Michael was basically saying or insinuating or hinting at, I think, was that we dudes, we're not marrying Yahushua. We're not entering the bride chamber with him. We're not doing that. And you look at the parable of the 10 virgins, like, they're all women. So there's no men in that story, like, dressing up in bridal gowns. And so what this passage seems to say, in Yosef and Aseneth, is that there seems to be an implication that the women get Yahusha and the men get penitence. And it actually says that they can enter her bridal chamber. And that's one of those things where it's like, ooh, I know what that's saying. I know what that's insinuating. And that's where, people can, start up the hit videos and all that kind of stuff. But that's what it says. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things when Rob and I were talking, where, Rob, I'll let you say that, but it was one of the things where it's like, that makes sense. I don't want to speak for you, but it was like, I don't know. It seemed to click. It seemed to make sense. But go ahead.
Yeah, it implies that we, male and female, and it's all Torah. I mean, like you just said, men aren't going to be marrying a man, but we in Torah come to the marriage supper, and now through this covenant we become one with the family. We become one with the family. When your son is getting married to a woman, she is now in your family. So here it is, where I mean, to me, it implies that, what you just said, that the men with the woman and the women with the man, and look at Yahusha as the ultimate man, God man, son of man, who's perfect. And then here is penitence as a woman, as a daughter of Yah, as this perfect woman out there that's been chased and held and ready for the man or the men, and etc. In that, in that context. So it makes sense to add those two together in that way. So the implication, to me, it's possible. And it's not like we can throw daggers at this and saying, nah, it's against Torah, it's this, that, and the other. But just, hey, it's possible, and it does answer that question. Are we all marrying Yahusha? Are the men, the women, and I like the point you mentioned that the 10 virgins, parable was, they were all females. So yeah, just some good points to think about.
Well, again, I don't know if that's a little too literal, into the fact that we think it's going to be like, it takes place down here on earth. But something to ponder there is, has penitence walked the earth, or is she always in the heavenly realm?
Well, I would say she has not walked the earth. So the story of Yosef and Aseneth is that Aseneth has lived. It's almost like the original Rapunzel. I think, if I'm getting that right, that I think it's Rapunzel, right, with like the long hair, and the guy goes and rescues her in the tower. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we see a lot of these Grimm's fairy tales and other things, that even King Arthur and things that seem to come out of scripture. It's really fascinating. but she's basically like the original Rapunzel, and she is in this in the story. Okay, forget penitence for example, for a second. With Asenath, she lives in this tower, and actually Potiphar doesn't actually live there. He lives in a different house, but for whatever reason, he has set up his daughter, his adopted daughter, in this palace that no man has ever seen her ever, except for Potiphar. And it says, which is so bizarre and odd, it says that she has a dead brother, that the brother saw her, but the brother died. And we can kind of draw ideas that like Messiah died, so that's kind of interesting. But it says that she has 7 virgins that were born on the same day that attend to her. And so we see some comparisons there with the 7 ruach proceeding from the father that would attend to his daughter. That's really interesting. And it says that nobody has sat on her bed. But these legends of her are so renowned through Egypt that everybody, kings and everyone and princes, they all want to marry her, even though they've never seen her before. And it's Yosef is the first person to ever see her. And I get, he's like a really manly man when he walks in, and he sets up his own table and all that kind of stuff. And when she sees him, she like breaks down in tears. And she the narrative then, after she sees Joseph for the first time, she spends the next 7 days locked up in a room in total repentance and throwing out her idols and all those kind of things. And some interesting things happen, but that's the kind of the comparison, is that the only begotten daughter of Elohim is in this palace or this tower or something in heaven that has only been attended to by probably his 7 ruach that proceed from the father. The father has seen him. Her brother, the son, the Messiah, would have seen her, but nobody else, maybe not even the angels in heaven, have seen her. And this is where I've pointed out in the past that I do believe there are feminine angels. There are some books that talk about female angels. The reason that we don't see them on Earth, and so this is important to answer your question, Mike, I think, is that the reason we don't see female angels showing up on Earth is that this is a patriarchal society. In a patriarchal society, what happens? The women stay back at home, and the men go out and hunt and go to war and do business, and then they come home to the women, right? And so in the same context, if there are female spirits in heaven, I believe that the Ruach HaKodesh is feminine, so there's one. If there are female spirits or angels or female Elohim up in heaven, the idea is that they would all stay there, and the men would come down here to do the bidding. So, and that's so I don't see any reason that she would ever come down here, especially if she is so set apart in described as a virgin and untouched, and she could never be mixed among the unholy, the profane, those who aren't set apart.
We also have to consider that what did a lot of in the temple, they would have women in the temple that did certain servitudes, and they were there from very young age. I mean, look at Mary, the whole story of Mary, and she was served by angels and pure, and it was just just a beautiful, holy. She was set apart in that sense with anyone she did discussed anything with. I mean, she was just there and dealt with the priests themselves. So we have that model already set up in place to compare that to and think about. So it's not like it's a foreign subject matter to discuss.
When you know what she is here for, penitence, her role, what Rob just shared, what her serve or her services for all of us. Could you describe that again?
So with first with Asenath, we see that her entire role in the book, Aseneth being, Dinah's daughter, she was spending the entire book repenting of her sins, and she's of course a goyim, and we actually see her cross over to become a Hebrew and enter a covenant and marry Yosef, and then become, obviously the mother of two of the tribes. Um, and so it seems to be that penitence in heaven, according to this book, is um, her job is tasked with the praying for us, for those of us who are um, being obedient to Torah and trying to obey the ancient path, the narrow way. That she is praying for us, that we repent, right? That we have penitence is in her name, right? I mean, the descriptions are in their name. Like Yahusha is our salvation. She is our penitence, right? And so, yeah, I think that's actually a really beautiful picture, and that she's actually, rooting really. So the same thing happens with Asenath as she's repenting, as she is in penitence. She is looking forward to the coming of her husband, of Yosef, and so in the same context, penitence being the chaste virgin, untouched, pure, she is praying for her future husband. I think that's what's happening. Again, according to this book, and Dave brings up a point. Maybe that's why there is only one witness. This was in the context of the patriarchal society. I brought that up in the beginning of the paper. That's perhaps I brought up that very point. That's why we might not see more of it, because she's not revealed to us. And it's interesting that, you guys, like, Yosef and Aseneth is not that hard to find. It's the somewhat read book. A lot of people read this, and why has nobody ever brought this up before? Like, I picked it up and I started reading it because I try to read. I'm reading extra biblical books like left and right, and I'm reading. I'm like, this is a cool book. Yeah, I'm kind of digging this. I don't really know where it's going, and then, like, I almost fall out of my chair at this point when
Jumps right out at you.
yeah,
Really, no, it really does.
and I get to the end of it. I'm just like, oh my goodness. And so I pick up the book again. I talked to Rob about it almost immediately. I pick up and I just take out a notepad, and I'm going through every line of the book and just taking notes and going like, this is so deep. This is like a representation of the history of the world, of like 7,000 years of human history, and how Aseneth is. So on the flip of this, when we talk about the feminine ruach, we talked about this a few weeks back, how in Sirach, the ruach wisdom says that she is the mother of all ruach, right? And we get this picture when she's hovering over the face of the waters, that she is. We know that according to Jubilees, all souls were made before the throne of Yah on the first day, and on that first day, the Ruach Hakodesh is hovering over the waters, preparing, fermenting the womb of this earth. There it is, Mike. The earth is a womb, fermenting, preparing, brewing for all her children to be born. The Ruach HaKodesh says that her children is Israel, that she inhabits just Israel. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Rob. And so with the Ruach, we see her longing for all of her children which have yet to be born, just like any mother or woman who is looking forward to her future children being born. Like, if any woman here has been pregnant, and you would know what it's like when you just can't wait for your child to be born, right? Penitence is the flip of that. She's the opposite. She is longing for her mother to give birth to all the souls, or all the souls to be produced, and then she is praying for the repentance and penitence of the children of Israel.
Because what do we have? What does everyone have to do? Repent.
Yeah.
Every knee shall bow. That's why it makes so much sense.
Yep. Yeah, and Noel, regarding that, the wisdom Mike and I will be able to do a Thursday night on that. That'll probably take a good hour, 2 hours on that one too, if you want.
Yeah, you take 2 hours, you take 3 hours. I'm sure people will be glued to that. You guys take as long as you want.
Yeah, and it's obviously always controversial on that topic, but we'll present the scriptures that will support that for people to ponder and look into themselves. So, absolutely.
Anybody can jump in. I don't want to talk all night. If you guys have any
I had
other
a
thoughts.
I had a quick
I have a
question.
question. Oh.
No,
More to be
go
revealed.
ahead. I'll remember mine.
My question is, where can the book of Joseph and Asenath be found?
That is a very good question. And I am planning next week, next Thursday night, for a part 2 follow up. We're just going to go ahead and read the book. So I will provide it here. I was going through a kind of a summer series of reading extra biblical books, and I think everyone is going to be amped and just hooked on it. If you would like to get your own copy, a physical copy, Zen Garcia on his website, Sacred Word Publishing. Yeah, it just came up. Dave just popped it up into our voice chat. It's called Testaments of the Patriarchs and Prophets. I'm holding it in my hands, and that's where I first encountered it. It's attributed to be, now I could care less about dates of all the scholars. I can give obvious reasons why, but if you're into that sort of thing, most scholars, I believe, paints it to be pre-Messiah. They'll say it's Greek Hellenization, but it's I think 1st century BC, 1st century Common Era in there. So it's interesting, and that it is a Jewish work, they say, and it's again, it's pre-Messiah, so pre-Yahusha.
Great. I found the book of Yehudith to be really good too. One.
The book of Judith.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the Apocrypha?
Yes.
Or a part of the Apocrypha?
Yes. That's one of the things I really like about the Sefer. I'm not a big fan of the word apocrypha. Don't worry, it's not a trigger word, but I'm not a big fan of the word apocrypha because it was actually set up for failure. It's almost like the church fathers, I say church fathers with quote unquote, when they were forming the canon, and keep in mind there's no prophecy I've seen that there would be a 66 book canon in scripture. But when they were setting up the canon, they took all these books that they didn't want in canon. They called it Apocrypha, and it was really brilliant. And then they wedged it between the books. But what I really like about the Sefer, if anyone here does not have a copy of the Sefer, and Dr. Stephen Pidgeon, he really started something with that book. I mean, he really it's exciting what he's been doing, and where he's making it all name appropriate. And I don't have the count. I have the Sefer in front of me, but there's probably something like 20 books that are added into the Sefer, and they're not apocrypha. Yes, they are in other Bibles known as apocrypha, but what I mean by that is that you go from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and then it goes straight into, I think it's Jubilees, Enoch, Jasher, and you're like, what? And then he just, and he just goes, he throws Sirach and 1st and 2nd, 3rd, 4th Maccabees and 1st, 2nd Baruch, and all these different things all scattered throughout. And it actually, what it does is that it gives those books more authority. It's saying I'm putting these books as an equal standing with all these other books. And so if anyone, hasn't read the Sefer yet, I highly recommend getting a copy. Well, guys, it seems like the discussion is kind of leveling out on this. If Josh, do you have anything? Does anyone else have any thoughts on, before we move on to another topic? Does anyone have any more thoughts on Yosef and Asenath?
Yeah, I had a question. You mentioned something when you were reading. You said it was only after the death of Yahushua HaMashiach that the Goyim were grafted back in, and who were they grafted back in through? The tribe of Ephraim. And you mentioned that we can debate that, and I was just curious what you meant by that. Like you said, we can debate that later, guys. I was like, hold on, why is this a debate? And like, what are the two sides, or two or three or four sides of the debate?
Well, okay, so that right. Okay, thank you for bringing that up again. So, okay, we know that Yahuah the Most-High Elohim handed the house of Israel, the northern house of Israel, which included the 10 tribes, a bill of divorce. Okay, they're done. They're divorced. And Torah tells us that if you give your woman a bill of divorce and she goes whoring after other men at that, or whoring after men is maybe a bad term at that point. She's been given her divorce. If she goes to another man, the context is perhaps you gave her the bill of divorce because she was already whoring after other men, but you give her the bill of divorce, she goes to other men. At that point, you can't take her back, right? We're probably all familiar with that concept. I don't have that scripture in front of me. We know it's there.
Dog can't return, like a dog doesn't return to its vomit, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, right. But by the law of Torah, you can't take her back as a bride, right? And so that's a huge problem now because we're like, well, wait a second here. Hey, how does this all work, right? So the idea is with and Rob Skiba, I just gave the tip off to that Ephraim Awakening. Anyone can go there to that website and look at all his research on that. Is that Yahusha comes and dies for his bride, and I stress it's for Yahusha that the bride was always Yahusha's. It was not Yahuwah's. It was always the son's bride. He comes and he dies and he resurrects. So now the bride, the divorced bride, that's us who went whoring after other Elohim, has the opportunity to come back in. That's the gospel, right? That's what when he is our savior, that's at least what I think about. That's what it means, that he is my savior. He saved me from my divorce, from the long divorce, the perversions that I've been thrust into, and I can now return. So, but here's the question. At what point after the divorce were the children of Israel able to return? Okay. And this is something I've had the discussion with others in this group, that we see before Yahusha's death and resurrection, we see other members of the house of Israel living in Judea being Torah observant, being a part. They, everyone else was scattered, but they came back. And it's like, well, were they able to come back? Right? Were they, they were divorced, right? And so the question is, at what point were people able to come back into the marriage covenant? Does that make sense? Was it like he divorced that original generation and then their children were able to make up their mind? I almost think that there is something about the third and fourth generation. When you look at the mud flood research, it's really interesting that we are like, the fourth, or I guess fifth generation, almost from like the mud flood, and like we're all waking up. There's like almost something to that. And so maybe there were 4 or 5. I don't know how many generations went by. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it was only after his death and resurrection that they could then be brought back in, or if that was just a turning point, or if it was faith in the fact that he would do that. That's the debate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So because this is the weirdest thing, but I think this happened 3 weeks now in a row. Is that somehow I came across the phrase that Yahusha says, "Do not think that I come, but for the lost tribes of Israel." And when he says that, he says he's referring to the 10 tribes that were given a certificate of divorce, I guess.
Correct.
So if he came for those 10 tribes, what about the other 2? What's the deal
Well,
with them?
that would have been Levi and Yehuda.
Yeah.
where we get Jew, right? I actually wish she was in this group tonight. I saw her pop in and then she left. Oath of Yah, and she has made the rather provocative statement that Yahuwah divorced the tribe of Yehuda. I cannot speak on that, but I would like to hear her thoughts on that, and she's not here. That is very sad because I would love her to jump into this conversation. Yeah, so the thing is that Yehuda and Levi had not been divorced, at least not by that point. And so you could argue whether 70 AD was a divorcing of them. I don't have any opinion on that. But so that's why he came for the sick, right? He came for the lost. And when we talk about we're lost, hopefully everyone in this room is no longer lost. Hopefully we're not a lost sheep anymore. We are no longer a Gentile. We have crossed over and we are back into the house of Israel again. We're grafted back in. And so that's who he came for. And so when you look at the 12, where were they going out to, right? They were riding to the house of Israel and to the lost tribes. And they were I think targeting them and going out and bringing them back in. I would argue, and I know I can't prove this. It's a hunch, it's an instinct that I have. It could be very wrong, but I do believe that all of us, if we are brought back into it, there is something about the bloodlines, and I do believe that we are Israel. And it's funny is that when people will argue with you, oh, I don't need to keep Torah because I'm not a Jew. It's like, how do you know that? Like, if you actually were to believe that Torah is for the Jews, like, are you willing to stake your eternal security and salvation on the fact that you're not a Jew? Because statistically, you're more likely related to Abraham through the 12 patriarchs than not. I mean, think about that. Like, I've read that, I've seen this, the statistics before, and we are all more likely related to Abraham through the 12 patriarchs than not. And so when you look at it, what happened was Yahuwah divorces humanity at Babel. He's like, I'm done with these people. I spared them. I spared this family in the flood. And look what happened. I'm done. But you know what? I'm going to start all over again with Shem, and the descendant of Shem. We're going to start all over again with Abraham. And then, we see the buildup. And again, with Israel, he's like, I already want to get rid of these. I can't stand these people. Like, he says to Moses, he's like, I'm going to just wipe these people out. And I'm going to start fresh with you. I'm going to start a new nation with you. Right. And so what happens is that when he divorces Israel, he throws them out into the Goyim. They become the Goyim. And it's really brilliant because it's part of the whole redemption process that Israel has now become the people, the disinherited people. And now we, the disinherited people, the Goyim, are, it's all being brought back together, right? Into, hopefully, eventually the two tribes will connect again, Judah and Israel. But, yeah, hopefully that kind of addressed all that.
Well, it really shows that, like you said, this hasn't been hidden, this story, where this has been revealed. It's been sitting there. You guys have been researching to see if anybody else has commented on it, or there's any other witness, other books that reference her, and that it's coming now, like many other things recently, or in the recent times, and even as more recent, what's being revealed, that this to me is not surprising. It's almost great. Like, wow, look what's being shown to us now. And the other thing I want to share on is what were you just talking about, that I might have to pause here, that Oh, what were you just talking about, Noah? Excuse me.
I was talking about Yah divorcing or disinheriting humanity, Babel, Israel
Right,
being.
in us and Torah being following the Torah, which goes basically down to not wanting to give any credit to the Father, which is basically going in this day and age, and for supposedly Christians or Jewish, we have the 10 Commandments, and it's just like, come on, guys, if you're following one commandment and you're saying that's the Father's, you're following the Torah, you're being Torah observant, or as you were saying, being Torah observant. So let's not fool ourselves. It's almost been set up like if you're not a Jewish, you can't be Torah observant. It's like, wait a second here. And something's been spun. As you can see, the confusion has been spun because, like, once again, if you, you believe not to kill anybody, you believe in, the first commandment, number 1 and number 2, and we've talked about this before, you're already following the law. So why are you throwing out all the others?
Well, that where you get people is this. They hate this. All the time. I talk to people and they're like, "Oh yeah," when I talk to them about the law of Yahuah, they're like, I'll point to Revelation 14:12, and it says, keep the commandments of the Father. You guys have heard me quote that 100 times by now. And people go, "Of course I keep the commandments of the Father. I keep the 10 commandments." And so, they think they've got you there. And it's like, okay, what about the 4th commandment? Which is, remember, it's the only commandment in the 10 commandments that says, remember, do not forget, remember to keep the Sabbath. It's the only of the 10 commandments that has been completely snubbed, forgotten, or redefined. And they hate that because if you can, they'll argue all day they don't have to keep Torah. But it's like, as soon as they realize, if you can get them in the corner to realize that Sunday is not the Sabbath, that it is the 7th day is the mark of Yah, and it is eternal and forever and cannot be changed, cannot be altered. That in fact there are prophecies that a man of lawlessness or what have you would come and change the times. But if they can identify that, oh no, Sabbath it's a Jewish thing. it's all of a sudden like that that opens everything up. Because as soon as you start realizing, like, Sabbath, the 7th-day Sabbath and the feast, that's half of Torah right there. I mean, you might as well just give in to the rest of it and start wearing a tassel by that point, because it's pretty much it. Stop eating pork and wear tassels.
I had a kind of a question about that, actually, just because it's been kind of a thing recently. But so you have these the brothers of I forget the name. I think it was Dinar, the woman who was raped in this book. And Dinah, yeah, that's it. And so the brothers go in and they just kill everybody. What about the commandment where you're not supposed to murder? Like I see these contradictions throughout Scripture, and it seems like a contradiction to me, but I can't really find justification for it. Where it's like, don't kill your neighbor, and then y'all's just like, but can you go and completely annihilate all these people for me? Thanks, guys.
John, regarding that point you just made, real quick, there is other writings out there explaining why they did it. There was more to the Masoretic text that was behind the scenes of why they went out and did what they did. That's all. I just want to add that.
Oh, okay. But I mean, it's still killing, right? It's still like killing people.
Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
To define that is that there was something behind it, meaning that they were planning on more or less killing them. I have to dig up the text. I can't remember which book it's in, but they had evil intentions. And what the brothers did was they found out about it because the women that was serving Dina when she was being held went to the brothers and told them the plan that was going to happen. And so that's why they did what they did and acted the way they acted. So there's more to the story.
Oh, okay. But that still being the case, like, it doesn't seem like the Ten Commandments, the murder commandment says, thou shalt not murder unless this set of policies apply in this situation, right? It's just, how do we remedy? Like, how do you guys remedy that? Like,
Well, that was
yeah.
Well, I would say repentance.
Repentance, exactly.
Yeah, they weren't perfect. Can I just throw a tangent in here real quick? I wanted to get back on Yahuah's daughter, and Hebrews 10:26 talks about Yeshua. If you continue to willfully sin, there no longer remains a sacrifice. And like Leviticus 4 talks about intentional sins that are covered. It kind of makes sense now that she's like filling that part where the only way to reach, you can't even go through Yeshua, is to repent. And that's the only way, is to turn back to the Torah, because the high priest can't forgive that sin. I don't know, it's kind of like fits everything. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's a family affair, isn't it? I mean, we see that the only way to get the ruach, wisdom, is the Father. The fear of Yahuah is the beginning of wisdom, and it's the beginning of knowledge. And we see, just like you said. I mean, it's incredible how they all are playing an active role in the history of salvation, of our salvation, of our return to paradise after the fall. That's all I have to say on that. I mean, it's.
Sakad.
great point. Yep.
What did you say, Michael?
It's just it's a cod, it's another, they're one, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
Is it like that kind of keyed onto me? I'm not sure if you guys are saying the exact same thing, but is it possible that when Yahuah calls people to repent, that original wording is actually penitent, like the name of the bride?
This was I was kind of in, maybe there are other translations that maybe show this, and let's see what's going to be revealed, because I wouldn't doubt it.
That is an excellent question, and that's something I should maybe do a search on, and it could spawn a whole second paper, really, because
Like
you're
in plain
right.
sight, hiding in plain sight.
Right, and my kid said it earlier that we see the Son all through Scripture. I mean, he is salvation. Where we see the word of Yahuah is our salvation. The word of Yahuah is our Yeshua. Right, is all through the Bible, and it just pains me when I see people turn away from Messiah because they say they can no longer see him, and I'm just like, I don't even know how to answer their questions at this point, because it's like, if you can't see it, I don't know what to do for you. So that's a really interesting thought, that she could be in plain sight. This idea of penitence in front of us, and to look and scour and see if we can see her at work in there. That would be fascinating.
Because I mean, this Yahusha says it all the time. He's always telling people, repent, repent. He's not saying,
Right.
hey, don't worry, you have grace. He's saying, repent, 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 over and over again.
And it would make sense that there would be someone there on our behalf.
Yeah, so I would be interested to see what the I guess the Hebrew word for penitence or repentance is, and then match it up with what Yahusha is saying, or Moshe is saying, or the prophets are saying. That would be a. If anybody ever does a study on that, be sure to send those notes my way too.
Well, who's handy with the scripture bot? Have a quick go.
The scripture bot, I think, was broken earlier today, but I think it's up working again. All right. Well, anybody else? We could talk about this all night, but I know you guys probably want to uh, talk about other things as well. We can close this shop up if you guys would like, and just open conversation. Is there anything else on the topic on hand of Yosef and Asenath, Dinah or Dina, as Rob has corrected me, or Job, the timeline, or penitence? Okay. Well, is there anybody who would like to close us in prayer? Okay, I will close us in prayer. All right, our dearest Father in heaven, Yahuah the Most-High Elohim, thank you for giving us your scripture and doing it in such a way that we really have to seek this stuff out. And I know when we seek it out, we reap a lot of rewards, and we just discover things that just blow our mind. And your mysteries are incredible, and thank you for revealing them to us. We pray that you would give us your wisdom continually, and we pray that we would repent of our sins and our transgressions against you. And we just long and look forward to the day when heaven finally comes down to earth and we are all in unity together. Amen. All right, with that,
Amen.
we are officially closing the night. So shalom, everybody, and of course, as you guys know, I will be staying on for the next hour or however long this party goes tonight. So, but if anyone has to sign off, get to bed for work in the morning. Thank you for coming by. I'm always so appreciative that so many people come by and just want to talk and listen. So, shalom, everybody.
Shalom. No, something I noticed, and somebody else was bringing this up earlier. I think Sharon in Virginia, where she was sharing in Virginia, and how it is where she's living, and it's something I've commented on before. It's like when people sometimes were like waiting for things to get worse. I'm like, this just depends on what neighborhood you're in. Some neighborhoods, you could call them worse than hell, maybe. So we don't need that. Yahuwah doesn't say that has to happen everywhere. But what is interesting right now is really and just let's look at so-called America at the moment and in the different states, the differences. It's like where I live in Hawaii, I'm like, guys, you wouldn't realize how, for whatever reasons, but at least the narrative here is like almost like New York or San Francisco, where other places it's like you can see in many ways the general population is, without going into detail, not believing so many of the lies. So it's that spirit of fear or that spirit of love. And you can see that where it's really, I guess, it's being pushed in certain places heavy, and other places, I'm just seeing it. I don't know I'm just commenting on it, that there is some real differences.
Yeah, real differences in just where people live.
Yeah, whether like I went to town today, believe me, I was probably the only outside of the stores. I think I was the only one without a mask on, a few people without a mask on. And probably one of the few people still unvaccinated. Who knows the numbers? But beyond that, literally the spirit of fear. It's like, what are you sensing? What am I feeling? What do I feel when people, and it's almost whether it's strong in some people, so I was saying, we can't really judge that, but we can see in some ways what are more people, um, funny word here, gravitating towards or tuning in with. And it seems more people are buying these lies, tuning in more to the spirit of fear instead of really being with the spirit of love.
Right. And you, of course, we've talked about this in the past, and you just nailed it. We know that there's only two prime emotions, there's fear and there's love, and John says, and I think it's First John, that uh, the the absence of love is fear, and so we see people afraid all over the place, and it's just wait until. See, at this point, it's still a guessing game as to who has been vaccinated. And so there's all these vaccinated people. Now, I don't trust any of the numbers. I don't trust any of the numbers. However, it is interesting that they say in Israel that only 80% of the population has been vaccinated. That's a lot of people, but we're talking about Israel here. Israel is a place with like the highest population of doctors in the world, and they're all about science and very advanced in their research and all this kind of stuff. And it's so bad there you can't go on public transportation, you can't go in hospitals, you can't go anywhere unless you've been vaccinated. So 20% of the population, if that is true, that they still haven't been vaccinated, that's a lot of people. And that's encouraging that there are people all over this motionless plane that are still refusing the vax. I think there's probably way more in Hawaii than people know. And so at this point, the vaccinated people, however many there are on this earth, let's say it's, what do you guys estimate in America by the numbers? Is it 60% that have been vaccinated? I don't really know how many people, but they're walking around and they have no clue who's been vaccinated or not. They're looking around and go, okay, that person is not wearing a mask. So one of two things: either he doesn't believe in vaccinations, or he has been vaccinated and feels confident going around without a mask. But just wait until the vaccine passports are a norm, and all of a sudden they see us people without the vaccine passports. Like, then the fear and the hatred is really going to start turning our way, because
Yeah.
it's no more a question with or without a mask. It's like, oh, the mask doesn't matter anymore. Oh, you don't have the vaccine passport. Like that, it's gonna get serious, guys, when that happens.
Well, you're describing it already in Israel. So this is what I was saying. It doesn't have to happen in every neighborhood. So we can see places in America where it probably will never take hold. But that doesn't need, this is where I'm saying, I was like, hey, that's not necessarily the plan. There's something greater here at play, more of on a spiritual level. We don't need to have all this necessarily take place on the physical level here where it goes to that extreme. But what I'm saying, it everywhere, because it already is in some places. So how is it there? So you'd have to imagine like Australia, where supposedly um, like opposite of Israel, let's say in terms of number of percentage of vaccinated, where finally they many people rising up, crossing whatever divide, whether you got vaccinated or not. This is just tyranny. So don't keep trying, and they know it's just to divide people. And so we're not judging either. We're not blaming each other, whether freedom life, whether you got it or you didn't. We're not against each other. So we know the narrative is always to divide us, to go against each other. And so what you're sharing is that with a certain percentage of the population, you'll see them get like what we were told in World War II. You know what I mean? You get the people to police themselves, as you're saying. And besides, so we can look at Israel as an example, as you're sharing, and it was already that way in many ways, right? A police state. You ain't getting in Israel without them knowing who you are. And so it's happening there. But I mean, I know a lot of I've met many Israeli travelers, and it's funny that most of them served in the military, and they're some of the biggest freaks that you'll ever meet, and that would never, buy into this tyranny. So I'm like, okay, when's this gonna give? There's something gotta give before I think this, like I said, it's already been trying to be put heavy into place. And this is what I'm saying. Here I am, so-called paradise, where they're heavy trying to push this. bring it in under the guise of benevolence, of like it's a good thing, and it's just like, okay, how long is this gonna before this is just gonna
Well,
something's gonna change?
yeah, I want to speak to that. Is that my understanding in corporate governance, that there's many strategic things put in place. They like, for instance, companies will put together strategies, like in multiple different layers and levels of strategy and execution of those to achieve their returns. And same thing, it goes on up to every kind of level. So it's whatever this worldwide plan result is, which I think we all know pretty much what that result's gonna, their focus is, but they have to put strategies out there and execute them and have multi-layered contingency plans. So that's why we're seeing some things. Maybe a wrench gets thrown in their plans, and they come up with plan C or D or Z or whatever, and move things forward. But yeah, it's going to continue to move forward, and maybe in different ways, and in different ways in different states even. And we're seeing a lot of things people are doing in some places that aren't so bad in other places, and that goes back to numbers. Might have some places that are like 95 or 90%, jabbed, and other places much lower. I know in some places that I am aware of, the numbers of people that did get a jab are like in the 70s for that organization. There's a couple organizations I know that they took surveys, and they know who did and who did not, and those numbers are up in the 70%. So
we're going to find out very soon in Hawaii, in all the major unions, which are the biggest employees, like the teachers union. And I want to say, because here's the other thing, we don't hear really alternative news. They're not going to advertise the good stuff. They're not going to advertise, hey, this is the real number.
No, they just continue with the fear.
Right. Just like as you were sharing. Well, what we are noticing is it does look like in some key sectors, but even though nurses, let's say that could be maybe 50-50. But I swear on the teacher side, I want to say it's a clear majority, which is really surprising. The other part of it is many different reasons. I talked to a friend today. He said it was purely financial. Why he got the job. He was traveling. And he was like, that, whatever. I ain't afraid of what they're putting in there. We've already been it. And I explained to him the mRNA and stuff like this. Careful. And they said, to get any more, maybe you got the placebo. But here's the other part, is that we're in a good group here to share this. It's almost like, okay, guys, in the general population, excuse me, I'm like, hey guys, it's how this is an evil plan. Don't try and like just pass it aside. But many people don't see the evil intentions behind all this yet. Yeah, and that's where I'm like, guys, this is where these guys are going. Let's not waste breath here.
No, they're going to continue with that, and they're going to put out the propaganda. Even like you saw recently here, the FDA, they're ranting on the FDA approved this vaccine. Well, if you look into the truth of that, they did not approve the vaccine that is on the market right now. The FDA did not approve that vaccine. They approved another vaccine that's very similar to this one, and that's not even going to launch until 2022. So that just shows you the length they go to
interesting
of deception.
Wow, that is big deception, because everyone, the narrative was, no, it was just approved, and here you are, clear as day. All you had to do is a little research to realize, no, dudes, this is down the line. So this is where I'm saying so many people are like, now it's approved, you should get it. And it's like, no, they just didn't do that.
Yeah,
the propaganda is already there.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the strategic plans they have and contingencies, because this is a great ploy where they put out, they know it's a lie, but they're going to position it and put it out and let every news media run with it for like a week or 2 weeks before the truth finally, slowly creeps out, or they may not even let the truth come out.
Right.
But they know, hey, we're going to release this, we're going to state this, and this should boost us up maybe another 3 points or 3 percentage points of people to now come on board and take it. That's it. Like I said, it's when you have the eyes to see this stuff and you understand the methods uh, in strategic planning, you can see how these things are just being orchestrated. It's just sad.
So one thing that I would love to get my hands on is the piece of paper that people sign, like the waiver, when they take this jab. And when you same thing with like a flu shot, you got to sign something. And when you sign it, you can't take it home with you. Like they keep it. It's for their records. And what I am told is that there's a fine print in there where they actually tell you. So I was in a conversation with someone the other day, a couple of days ago, that this person was saying that a military person read the fine print. This military person was supposed to sign off on this, and he was like, "I'm not taking this jab. They can court martial me. It says right here. It says right here that one of the side effects is not being able to have children. It makes you infertile. It's one of the side effects, and apparently it's there in the fine print, and they tell everybody. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if this is just like a rumor, but I would love to get my hands on that piece of paper and see what people are actually signing.
If
Sure, they probably have it in there because we know that's part of the agenda, and again, they've basically not liable for anything. So yeah, they probably got diarrhea in there also.
I would be very skeptical if I went somewhere and someone said, "Hey, you just need to sign this waiver," and they didn't like give me, they just took it. They didn't like here's a copy for you. If they didn't give me a copy, I would be like, I'm not going to sign that.
Remember that guy
Remind
who
me of
went in,
movie that I
took the
watched
jab?
last night. It was The Count of Monte Cristo. And when the guy is the revelation, I don't know who's seen that, but the guy is the revelation. He's like, oh, he burnt the letter because it was held him culpable, so he got rid of the evidence. That made me think of that.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
I'm really thinking, how much can evil hide before it's just so much in everyone's faces? It's like, we told you. And then what happens?
Well, like I said, every time his face is shown or his hand is shown in some way or effect, they hide it with another story or some tragedy or change the game plan. I mean, I don't even watch the news, but what the things that I do get is just I don't know. It's just like, I see what they did. I gotta see what it's
Yeah,
just
so
amazing.
get ready for unicorns and aliens, because I'm telling you, they're gonna get what else they're gonna. It's like, okay, you believe that one? You believe they're not? All right, because I see Yah's hand in this.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm like, he's got Ha-Satan on a short leash. What he can do to his people, he's gonna let them do many things, but I don't think he's gonna allow this. What do we want to say? Complete totalitarian control, because it has already happened in many places in many ways. And it's like, what, you telling those guys it's gonna get worse for them? No, man, they already lived worse than this. So you can see in many ways places that I'm like, dude, they couldn't make it any worse for them anyways. And in many places, try and make every way the third world. Here we are. This is where I find it funny when people talk about cryptocurrency and investments and stuff. I'm like, guys, do you realize 90% of the world don't have a dollar to put into nothing? And it ain't a question of, well, you could. No, dude, they're thinking of their next meal. That's the majority of the world. So let's get out of the idea of, yeah, good, we're in a position where we can do that. Great. But let's get realistic about the whole here, us here. And we're in this position here in some of these, let's say, Western places where more of us, we were given the grace to be a little bit more free than other places. And I'm like, and it's never in many times a paycheck away from being out on the street. So what I'm getting at is, I don't know, I think it's faith. It's faith that I'm like, the devil ain't in control.
Well, that's the thing. The faith is going to fall. I mean, the scripture says that the countenance of man is just going to fall, and that's a good point. Is that so many people are living paycheck to paycheck that when things do crash, I mean, their whole life, their whole future, their everything is just going to be like, what do I do next? And it's just going to be a shaking to them to their core. So if you don't have the faith and you don't fear, and you're walking in Yah, you're not going to worry about all those things. But a lot of people will.
The thing is about the people living paycheck to paycheck, in some ways, I think that they have it better, believe it or not. I mean, when you have people here in the West and we're all about materialism and wealth, and you take that away from people, people are going to flip out. Like,
True.
people's faith is in their ability to have possessions. And this is where I've stated before, one of my concerns with these end days we're in right now, just looking at the Torah community, you have a lot of people right now that are moving out to the Midwest. There's perhaps people in this room that are in the Midwest. I have nothing wrong with the Midwest. I love Missouri and Arkansas and that whole area. But, a lot of people in the Torah community, the Ozarks, they call it, the Oz, the place of strength. And they're moving out there, they're buying this land, and and it's almost like they're prepared, like, what I see a lot of attitudes are of people, they're going to save themselves. They're going to put up this fortitude, nobody can touch them. And at the end of the day, like, we are all supposed to prepare. That is a righteous thing to do, to prepare in the days of plenty for the days of wanting or whatever. But at the end of the day, there are going to be people where Yah is going to say, you need to get up and you need to leave. I mean, a lot of us in the middle of the night, like, we may have to just pick up and leave. And you could have a backpack with, like, your axe and your flints and all your survival stuff, and you got some suitcases, you pack it in your truck, your car, you start driving. What happens when you run out of gas? What happens when you can't spin that card anymore? Right? Maybe you have a little bit extra gas, you go a little bit further. Maybe somebody helps you out. But eventually, you run out of gas. You've got to get out of your car or your truck, and you just start walking. And what are the instructions that Yahushua says? He says, don't even take money with you, right? Don't even take that. He will provide. And there are going to be people where Yahushua says, stay here. And there's going to be people where he says, get up and walk. And what happens to all the people that have fortified themselves? They've, all this kind of stuff. And this is where the faithfulness comes in. It doesn't matter how much money you have or no money. At the end of the day, none of that's going to matter. Crypto is just, that could be gone in a second. And we could have money in our bank. We can't take it out anymore, right? We can't even spend unless if we have the vaccine passport. You guys know what I mean by this. So, yeah, it really is going to come down to do we truly put our faith and our faithfulness in the Most High? Do we really truly believe that He takes care of us, that He will feed us, that He will give us our next place to sleep, our next meal, and this is where it's going to hit the fan at the end of the day. So it's truly going to be interesting, and then each of us are going to be put to the test. Every single one of us.
Well, think about China. Just think about China, how they went from, let's just say, third world to first world real quick, with the technology, with the surveillance, with the complete what they want to do pretty much everywhere. And, China used to be what they called the thousand, I want to say, tribes. It wasn't the Chinese. It was all these different individual ethnic groups, actually. So it's been they've been messing with over there for a long time, setting this up to where real fast we see the example. Now, if they could they now do what we're talking about in China? Yes. We know in many places in China, they could put it on lockdown. Everyone's in these cities like completely camera. You need the digital passport. It's all your information is there. Kind of like Estonia, but it's like spun and it's spun in a good thing, right? This isn't like supposedly to like some we're seeing it as evil. It's happening in a few places already, in a few countries, full on this example. So, and people are still living. And so I'm like, okay, guys, somehow it could come to this. And but what we're seeing is there's gonna be a separation here. Or I call it this merging, co-merging. I don't see it. It's just we got to learn to come together. Or remember.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can hear you. I'm so sorry. I'm brand new here, so I don't really know how this works. But are you talking about the social credit in Estonia?
Yeah, that's one example where everyone's got all their information and it's really centralized and in some ways advanced tech.
That's
And so
absolutely happening here.
Exactly. So this advanced tech is already here, and that's why they want. Let's go real. Let's bring it right to this. This is the transhumanist. This is the corrupt the temple of God, which is us. Again, this is where the plan is going to. So we can talk about not getting our next meal. It's more of, hey guys, I'm not too worried about that one. There's some places where it's already there and they're feeding the people. But what's the bigger deal is what is really at play here. And I don't know what to say there, except goes back to, yeah, we need to all repent, because some people are already in this situation, already living in countries where it's completely what we say could happen here. And I'm like, so people are already living this. And you can see, like in China, give them the Bible and watch these people go, wow, super excited. So you can see that even in these already totalitarian state, already in a place like Estonia where it's not supposedly like that, I think you're free to worship. Where in China, you kind of not, where when you see the word is being spread, and which you don't really hear, but you see like these examples of these house churches and stuff, and they're all memorizing parts of the Bible, remembering the word and speaking it and sharing it with everybody. That it's happening. So we don't have to. The end game has already happened in some places, and I'm thinking we're here on another grace. That's what I say, grace, that we didn't have to experience it like there where they already did. So that's where I'm kind of going, because I see America. I'm like, we don't have to be like China. We know that's the plan, but we can already see that's going to change or not. What are you guys feeling on that? My feeling, I don't know. I don't see it. Maybe call me an optimist, but I pray it don't get worse.
In my humble opinion, I believe we'll be the last ones to fall. Simple as that. It's going to come here.
It's already in place with Facebook. That was, I think, the beginning of the social credit programs here. I got off Facebook a while back because I can't say anything. I was just getting shut down right and left. And I'm old. I'm 55, so I've seen a progression since the 70s, which isn't that long ago, but I think back to I was talking to my 27-year-old son just a couple days ago about how much things have changed and how you really can't even speak your mind. Well, you can, but you make it on somebody's list, or you're shut down or you're censored, or suddenly nobody sees anything you do anymore, where you used to have hundreds of people that would see what I was saying, and they literally shut me down.
Yeah, I understand that. When I was in college, I would see things in the curriculum and I would bring them up, and the professors and the students would just shut me down so fast. And so I got pigeonholed a lot in classes. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. The colleges, it's not even worth even going for any kind of education. Um, I think the only thing that I really got out of it was doing research and, coming out of it and then seeing for myself how much the world has changed in my view. Um, Coming out of my sleep, waking up, and then just realizing that this world is nothing but a sham. That's it's pretty devastating.
I think what they try to condition students or people that go to college is to direct them on on the research that they do on the few that actually really do research in there, is to give them their answers. So no matter how much research they do, they're still brought back to the indoctrination that is, the narrative that they must stick to. So they obviously, independent thinkers, they can't, they're not going to be able to grab all of them. But I think that the institutions, all these things that are put in place, they're all for an end goal and result. And when you see that and think about that in that way, then you can understand why the masses are being led the way they are, because there's very few free thinkers to
That's
question
why
the narrative.
that's why they make you wear the miter board on your head, because they don't want you thinking outside the box, right?
Yep. Yep.
And now you got a mask on, so forget it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
But
we're all of the same mind that this is not like, there is no, this is like end game stuff. Like, this is, Canada's reached the vaccination rate that they said that they would want to everything to go back to normal, and they've just gone back on every single one of the things that they said. They're obviously after every single living being.
Right. That's a good point, because even here they keep saying it, and then out the other side of their mouth they go, but we really don't have a number, because it's basically the plan is everybody.
Well, yeah, it's to feed everybody what they need them to believe in order to get more and more of them, so that they can put forth their agenda. And you mentioned Endgame, and I almost feel like that is it the end game, or are we like at the beginning of the end game still? I mean, I could see this going so much further in what they do to mankind. I just don't know how far it's going to go or how deep it's going to get to what that end result's going to be. But
Well,
ultimately, we know it's not good.
I chatted with
I
Noel about
see.
it, and it just doesn't seem like. Sorry, I'll just be very very quick. It just doesn't seem like much in the way of flesh is going to be around for the next 2 years.
The message that I have just been getting recently, because I've been very depressed over all this. Like, literally, I don't want to live in this world. And it's not depression, like mental depression. It's realizing where this is going. But the message that Yahuah keeps sending me is be grateful for what you still have, because it's just going to get worse. So
Amen.
right now I'm kind of in a place of just being grateful that I can still do anything.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I'm on. So with me, I feel, and I think I've been talking to a few of you about this, that I feel amped in a way because I know that I was chosen for this time, and Yah has me on a mission, and I want to be that flag bearer that is trying to unite people to the truth, and and try to save Satan wants to take out as many people as he can. I want to try to save as many people as I can. um but I have been really mourning the last 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, this week, guys, I've almost got to nothing done, and
Mourning.
I
That's
have
a
been.
better word.
Yeah, I love my life, and that I mean, what I mean is that I'm alive and that Yah has put me in this time, but I have really been mourning, just really realizing that this is it. Like, this isn't. I don't think we
Yes.
have. I don't think we have 10 years. This is it. Like, and here's the thing: is that we talk about all the things they could do. Okay, they're telling us what they're going to do 50 years from now, and they have all these plans for transhumanism and all the IQ, like the 10,000, 20,000 IQ, or what all this kind of stuff they're going to do. That right there is like, it's almost like a diversion, a straw man to the fact what they're doing right now, guys. This is the end game. They are destroying all flesh right now. We've been through this discussion before. A lot of us in this room, and I do as well, believe this is the mark. It's not the precursor for that. It's not. They show us in Hollywood and all the things the mark is going to look like. This chip in the hand, and all, it's going to do all these things and open doors, and it's going to be like a cell phone and all this kind of. It's like, no, like that is one of the biggest distractions to for Satan to say, see, this isn't the mark, it's just the precursor. But guys, that when has there ever been any other time in human history that we know of where every single government, just like you said, Josh, like with the Canadian government, where they've met their quota and they're still pushing it? And this is just the beginning, guys. We haven't even had the vaccine passport rollout yet, in any across the U.S. Unlike San Francisco and a couple places. Um, but I'm just like, I've just been mourning because I'm like, who's left to save? Who's like, I know that there's still that one person, right? That one person I'm trying to grab. Um, but I just I'm really, a lot of the things I'm mourning is that I look back at my life and I just go, how much of my life I have totally wasted, not serving Yah, not not taking his
Amen.
not taking his talents that he has given me and duplicating them. How much of my life have I hidden my talent, and and wasted my time watching trash on TV and movies, and all these different things, and just worshiping the world. And so I'm mourning that, and I'm mourning the loss of everybody, and I walk outside my door, and I go places and I tell my kids this stuff. I say, look around at all these people, guys. These are all dead. They're all dead. They're dead. They're all being tossed in the lake of fire. And I'm not judging them all. You guys know what I mean. Like there could very well be set apart there, but that's where we're at in history. I think we are at the point where the lake of fire is just around the corner. People are going to be thrown into that thing, and it's over. I don't think we have more than 2 or 3 years left on this earth, guys. That
Well, that's I prayed for that, literally. Even before I was reminded that, hey, I used to share with them. I was like, hey guys, is this really in the Bible? Because this is what, I say was going to happen. And for me, I actually was calling for this 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's like a fire time, God. Let's get out of here. Let's get evil gone. So now what you're saying is, I don't fear that time. I don't fear the lake of fire time. I think I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
we've been waiting for it.
I've been in the same mind myself, that we don't have a whole lot of time. I think we probably have a little bit more than 2 or 3 years, 5 at the most. I guess when you consider the real tribulation after the fifth seal, because I don't see that the fifth seal has quite come yet. The 4 horses are basically at the gate right now. I believe the first one has already gone out, the white horse. The other ones are going to follow quickly on its heels. But I definitely believe that before the fifth seal, many will die. And I'm also speaking for the righteous as well. Many will go, and I do believe that is on the compassion, or with the compassion of Yahuwah, because he would cut some of our days short, knowing that some can only handle so much. And if you're really fortunate, because not everybody is going to get to be among the group who gets to escape it. I look at the reality of that, and I'm okay with it, because I know that that whether Yahuwah decides to cut my life short, I will have lived my life to the best that He would want me to. So I have joy in that. It's still frightening to think, oh my gosh, we know it's going to get a lot worse. We don't know exactly what we're going to see. However, thanks to Hollywood, they pretty much give us a good image of what's to occur. But I'm in agreement with you, Noel, that we have just a few years left.
Well, one of the reasons I say that too is I think that everybody should considerately or consider once again the Revelation 12 sign. Whatever went down on September 23rd, 2017, it was really interesting. Now, when that happened, that was an interesting time. That it was almost like a paradigm shift where a lot of people were coming to Torah at that time. There was just a survey taken on the website on Discord today, and well, not a survey, but a lot of people chiming in saying it was 2017. That was the year they came into Torah. I remember watching the Revelation 12 sign from my house in Charleston, South Carolina. We're right on the water. We have an unobstructed view of the Virgos is coming up over the horizon, and it was beautiful to watch. I could see all of it perfectly, and it really started becoming more clear to me in March of 2020, Passover. Exactly the 3.5-year mark, right? So this ends in what was it? Was it 2022? I think it is, right? No, No, 2023. The fall feast 2023 is when this when it it all goes down. The all the signs and stuff go down again right on the feast, and it was in Passover 2020. I was driving to pick up my Passover goat, not my Passover lamb, but there was a Torah guy about 30 minutes from our house. He's into goat husbandry,
Oh
and
my.
he killed a goat for Passover, slaughtered it. He had like the unhewn stones for the sacrifice, all that kind of stuff, to burn it afterwards. And I went over to pick up the goat, and it was right as I pulled up to his house that my cell phone it went off that the governor ordered us all into our homes. Like right on Passover, and I was like, I can't believe this. Right at the halfway,
Wow.
right exactly at the halfway mark of the Revelation 12 sign of the 7 years, we're all ordered into our homes, and that's when COVID went mainstream. And so, I mean, I'm looking at this going. That's why I'm saying, like, guys, like this timeline could be legit, and it's something we should consider. That we've got just 2 years left on the
Well,
on the timeline. So if this and then you can get into all the conspiracies of what's going to happen with 5G and the vaccinated people and all that kind of stuff. And is there going to be a light switch flicked on? It's kind of interesting that China and Russia do not have the RMNA technology in their vaccines. It actually is literally a vaccine. It is not a jab.
Really?
Yeah, they do. China and Russia are the only two countries, major world empires, that are not giving the mRNA or RMNA. They are, and that's really interesting when we consider everything that, there's a lot of talk of China and
Why
Russia
would that be?
because if there was a situation where everyone's dropping over who've taken the jab, you could then have China and Russia. And we've all heard of the blue helmets and all that kind of stuff. They
yeah.
wouldn't come over. They wouldn't come over to conquer us. They would come over to help us, and they would never leave. But you could see a scenario where the communists take over, all that kind of stuff. Um, you know, it's just there. It's an interesting thought to think of. What's going on here.
That's fascinating.
Guys, a lot can happen in 2 years. I mean, imagine if people started dropping over in the next year, and then you still had a whole year to dodge bombs and bullets, and run through the woods. Like, a year is a long time. Like, 2 years from now could still be a long time away. But that's what I'm saying. A lot can go down, and I'm looking at this like, whatever happens, this is clearly Agenda 2030. It is undoubtedly, this is it. The way Rick Hummer put it to me when COVID came out, he said, Noel, that they have already pulled the pin on the grenade. It's over. You know what that means, guys? Like, you pull a pin on a grenade, you can still hold on to the grenade, but once you let go of it and it pops, it's over. It goes off. They've already pulled the
All right,
pin.
guys. I'll report from where I am. I'm in what I'd call, like I say it's the heart of Hawaii. It's known as the very special place, but not much talked about. And I'm like, all right, if this really is it, I guess for whatever purposes, like you were saying, no, you ain't gonna go anywhere. You're, especially in the mainland, I think I'm in a good place. But then again, it's what we were talking earlier. It's a system. It isn't location. It's a system wide. It's that spirit of fear. I hope I live in a place, because this place where I'm known, they have prayed the evil away before. So let's see what happens.
Well, I think what did it for me was, do you guys remember back in September of 2014 that there were 2 calves that were born with 7s on their foreheads? There was
With
one that
what
was
on their forehead?
the number 7 on their forehead. the first one that was born was a male bull, and he had a huge 7 on his forehead. And then the second was a cow, or a female. She was born also in September, on the same day as the male bull, and the 7 on her forehead was really small. And I revisited that a few months ago, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is Exodus, where this is Genesis, where Joseph had, where he had interpreted a dream for the Pharaoh, where he saw 7 fat cows and he saw 7 lean cows, and the 7 lean cows ate up the 7 fat cows. So we're looking at a famine. Well, this happened in 2014. These 2 calves were born in September, in the week of Yom Teruah. In fact, they were born the day after Yom Teruah, in the 26th week. And or in the 27th week, I'm sorry, the 27th week. And I thought, oh my gosh, I do believe that this is something that is significant, because where are we at now? We're 7 years later in 2021, and now we're hearing about all of these shipping containers that are being locked on the docks at the ports. Not as much food is being put out on the grocery store shelves. You notice that there's a lot of empty space behind the cans, because what they do is they move the cans forward, so then you don't notice that there's not as much food behind them. And some places are already experiencing not enough product coming in. So I'm truly in the mind that we are going to start seeing famine, real famine, coming probably starting around next month. So
Would you think that's famine or more of a system of control?
Well, it's both. It's both. But the third horse is famine. And right now,
All right, so as you're saying, it's going to be experienced in some way. So, right. So we've also talked about it's a famine of what did we say? What was it, Noel? The famine of the spirit. It's not just, I maybe got that wrong. It's not just in terms of food. It's more of like the manna of the Father, that we're famine of turning from Him.
Well, it'll be also famine of love. It says
famine of love. That's where I want to go. Yes.
Yeah. Love of many shall grow cold.
So it's that famine of love, which is the Father again, and Yahusha, and the Spirit of love, which is the Father. Is this what I'm saying? This is part of the famine, because we got to remember again, we've already been, you hear me out on this one. In many ways, what we've been eating has already been non-nutritious, let's say the least. Giving it without being too, I think, superfluous, poison. We've been fed since we've been born. In so many ways, what have we actually been eating? Let's just go to the story of cereal. And like, was that ever really good? And the milk and whatever, all throughout the processed food and stuff. So we've already been, in one way, it's like starved of real nutrition. We've been starved of the spirit of love. And the famine, as you were saying, has been literal in many places. Let's go to, they don't have food. And that, like you were saying, I think Venezuela really experienced this in cities recently, where there's no food. like you described.
I
There's
also,
like, it's gone from the shelves. It's
I al-
panic more than
right,
toilet paper.
but I also see it as a famine of for the want of the word. I see that in
Right, exactly.
yes.
So as this third horse, so it's more than just that famine
It,
of, food, but we see that being played out also, because that's the spirit of fear using what he can. And again, he's going to cover up the true famine, what which is what you just shared. So what would be the fourth? Because it's already playing out if we look.
the fourth one is death. Death
Well,
follows.
that's what you've all been we've been kind of pointing to. That's the agenda, the dark agenda, we'll call it, evil agenda.
Yeah. Agenda
And
2030.
Yes.
and the things are in place that people are willingly, yeah, that it might not kill me, but if I live. I'm like, yeah, okay, guys. I wouldn't push them too far with, that's just, yeah, I'll take it one more time. It's like, really, you guys, Russian roulette, and it's 6 in the chamber, and it's a 6-chamber gun.
That was actually pretty funny. 6 in the chamber, and it's a 6-chamber gun.
But that being
Well, we're
said,
already on the third booster already. I mean, it was supposed to be 2 shots, and now they're already pushing that third booster on everyone.
yeah.
Well, I did a word study on the word causeth, and when you dig deeper into the root of the word, it means to practice over and over and over. So basically, the ones who took the shot, they're going to be caused to repeat it again and again and again.
Fascinating. That's actually really fascinating.
That's very interesting. But
Yeah,
here's the thing. Like, you know, it's hard to enunciate this on the spot, but you guys are like, oh, the evil agenda, the evil agenda. No, this isn't the evil agenda. It seems evil, but it literally is ushering the kingdom. This has to happen. It's ordained. It's been allowed to happen. We have to think about
Yes,
it in
this
the
is what,
opposite way. We can't think
right.
that, oh, the
So this is
fourth
what,
horse, the third horse, the second horse. Yeah, just hold on. Just give me 2 seconds, Mike, to finish my thoughts
yeah,
here.
yes, please.
But it's like, and death follows. But death has the sting of death, death meaning literally eternal separation from our creator. That's what death is. Death isn't dying. Death isn't being killed. Death isn't being shot. Death is literally spiritual separation from Yahuah, our
Wow.
creator, right?
So
And
this
that's how I
is,
think about death. I don't think when I
right.
think about dying.
We're looking at it backwards.
So this is
Yes,
serious.
yes.
So this is
This
what
is
you're
like
saying. This
we
is
need
Lake
to
of Fire time.
rejoice because this is literally like this is the best time of ever. Like people's
Thank
like,
you.
oh, if I could be
Because
with
I believe
Yahusha, that'd
that
be
too.
great. It's like, no, we are
Exactly.
literally going to watch
It
the
has to happen.
kingdom come to pass. It's like we're going to see these events happen. This is insanity. Like
So
this is crazy.
why you hear a positive from me when I kept saying, I keep seeing, because I'm seeing the kingdom, because this is what I know what's coming. Now, how much is this we're going to be put through? This is why I said we got to keep our eye on the Father.
Well, that's where faith
Our
comes in,
hearts
right?
with
What
him.
Noah was saying. Like faith is literally belief and conviction put into action. That's why when Yahusha calls us to have faith, what he's really saying, he isn't saying, "Oh yeah, you need to believe that I died on the cross and you'll be okay." Well, one, cross, we should get rid of that. And two, it's not Jesus, it's Yahusha. But more importantly, he's saying faith is literally your actions. So what are your actions? Your actions are obedience. So he's saying your faith is literally being observant to the law, being faithful, being obedient, being subservient to the Father. That's faith.
So a couple of things here. We see that the kingdom of heaven is about to be ushered in. We could talk about post mud flood. Is it New Jerusalem or what? It's literally eternity the kingdom of eternity is about to be ushered in. And this comes down to, do we truly believe in that, right? Do we is this is where the true intent of our heart, the true state of our heart is about to be revealed. And we can speculate all we want about how hard it might get, but think about the majority of the world has already, if this is legitimately the mark, they have already cashed in their inheritance for, like, a bowl of soup. Like, just like Esau, that's how little they think about it. That's how little they actually believe in the coming kingdom, right? And it's crazy to think about how many people we have already seen just go like, maybe I'll turn into a zombie. They just laugh about it.
We'll find out, Noel? Because I still look at it and go, well, Father's hand, his heart. So we see it like he's warned us. He's told us. He's really reminded us. This is it. Whether you turning a blind eye to it, ignoring it, not believing it, not even like, what? Never heard of that. It doesn't deny that it's so. And like that, again, we'll find out. I don't, again, spirit of love, not spirit of fear. And
Yeah, I
in
wanna
this,
Yeah.
I
Mike,
really appreciate that so much, because I used the wrong word before. I couldn't describe what I've been feeling, and Noel said it. It's mourning. I had characterized it as depression, but it really isn't. It's mourning. But here's the funny thing. I only found you guys, I found Noel 2 months ago, uh, looking up something on Rob Skiba, oddly enough. I had seen a video of Rob's, and so I was just looking for information on Rob, and I came upon an article that Noel had written, and it wasn't what I was looking for, so I almost clicked out. Something said, no, you go back and read it. And it was a really long article on someone named Paula. And then I started looking at the website. I had no idea about Torah observance. I had just recently, as a quote, backslidden Christian, tried to come back to Jesus. I had no idea about Yahuah, Yahusha. But I had realized that Christianity was pagan, and I was just saying, and I was looking for somewhere to be baptized, and I was like, well, which church do I go to? So literally, you guys have been the greatest comfort to me, because I've been looking into all these conspiracies for years, and I sort of understood what was going on, but it wasn't until I found this particular website, the Unexpected Cosmology, that it started making sense, like why all these things were happening. And I had just I had been reading the Bible, the scrubbed version of the King James version, and I was having questions about that. I was like, this just doesn't seem right to me. And then I started reading all these things of Torah, and I'm still very confused. I will be completely upfront about that. I literally just stopped eating pork 2 weeks ago. And I'm trying to learn what I'm supposed to do. But this has just been such a great comfort to me. And even what you said tonight about not being in a state of mourning, we need to be rejoiced. Well, Noel, part of the reason you're here is to grab people like me who have been seeking truth, but utterly blinded, because I had come to the conclusion just a couple weeks ago that Christianity is literally the Antichrist. And you talked about that on your last thing last week, which is why I'm on here tonight, because I was like, I got to find these people. I literally just joined this whatever this app is, and I'm sitting here, tears just rolling down my face.
Praise Yah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I found my people. And it's a kingdom, it's a government, it's not a religion. And every day, I mean, I'm not getting anything done because I spend all day reading article after article. I think I've been through almost your entire website, and I can't put it down.
Wow.
I just can't. It's grabbed me, and I don't know how I'm going to get baptized. But my question has been answered. You know, I didn't know where to go because was it the Trinity or not the Trinity? Was it, you know, all these things which are totally becoming clear. You know, and I don't understand everything you're talking about yet, but it's just like blinding flashes of understanding. I don't know how to explain it. But everything I keep reading is something that it's like a witness. Like in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, the truth will be established. And I'll read something, and then instantly, the same day or a day or two later, I'll read something on the website, and I'll just literally end up shouting up and down my house like a crazy person because it's truth and it hits you like a hammer.
I know exactly how you feel because when people started coming into the truth about the plane of the earth, every single time somebody said, "Oh my gosh, look what I discovered," I rejoiced because it made me so happy that people are discovering truth. Oh my goodness. And
Hey,
welcome to the family.
hey, Rebecca, I want to jump in here. This seems important place to kind of, kind of turn the conversation. You don't have to I'm not looking for an address, but where are you located?
I'm in Tucson, Arizona, all by myself, isolated in my house. I have left my house maybe twice in the last 2 years, and it
Have
has
you
nothing.
have you ever been baptized?
Yes, and that's why I wanted to be rebaptized, baptized when I
Well,
was young.
I just I was thinking since you just kind of came into this for in the last 3 months, and hopefully everyone here else doesn't mind. Um, I was maybe we could talk a little bit about what I believe is the ultimate truth, and that's Torah. And if you have any questions about that and understanding what that is, what
100.
what you were descri- what you were describing is exactly, well, very much what I was going through a few years back, and I had already been in the what you call the truth movement, and I was a Christian, and I was discovering, that I knew we were on a flat, motionless plane, and that these 6 psychopaths ruled the world, and all this kind of stuff. But I was in a terrible vacuum because I realized that all of Christianity is pagan and a sham, and I knew that the Bible was true. I knew that the Bible was true, but I was like, Christmas is pagan and all this stuff is pagan. But I was being told, whatever you do not obey that law, because if you try to obey
Right,
if you try to obey that law, you are spitting on the cross.
right.
Yahusha, Jesus' sacrifice is no longer valid. And
Except it was a tree, not a cross.
well, right now, yeah, true. And I do have an article on that. Yeah. But when I came, when I came to the point where I realized that Torah is truth, that it is eternal, that it is to see Torah is to see the face of our Father, his personality, who he is, that he is from beginning to end, that he is unchanging. I was overjoyed because I was just like, yes, this is what my heart has been looking for my entire life, and everyone in the church has been telling me not. They've been speaking for Satan and telling me not to. Um, and so, if you have any questions about it, this would be a really good time to talk about that, because this is really important. I mean, John says in First John that he defines what sin is. I've asked many Christians, can you define what sin is? And they'll try to define it. I'm like, no, 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 no. You just made that up. Point to a scripture verse and tell me what sin is. And they don't want to do it. You know why? Because they know what it says. And John says sin is a transgression of the law. And then we look at
disobedience.
It is disobedience to the law of Yahuah. And then we read in Psalm 1 where David says, blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Yahuah, and on that law he meditates day and night. He will be like a tree planted by the water, right? And so that is what this entire existence comes down to. If we want to spend an eternity with the Father, I hear this all the time. Christians say they want to spend an eternity with the Father. And I'll be like, well, obey Torah then. They'll be like, no, I don't have to. And it's like, well, why do you want to spend an eternity with him then? Like, why? Like, if that's who the Father is, why do you want to be around him? If you see what I'm saying? And so yeah, this is a really good conversation to have. And if you have any questions, I'm rambling now, but
well, I didn't want to do. I've wanted to talk to you for a month now, and I had no idea how to go about doing it. And then I realized watching the video that was some sort of chat, and I was like, well, how do I find that chat? So I'm sorry for diverting from everything you were talking about, but I just felt like, where am I? I felt so isolated for the last 2 years because I had realized that even as a child, I couldn't accept the ball. I was like, I had cognitive dissonance because I was taught heliocentric model, but I never could accept it. And finally, just a few months ago, I went, well, I just don't even believe that. I mean, I just don't. And
No, I think
so I've all these things. Oh, go ahead.
Well, a really good line you said, wear tassels and don't eat pork.
Well, go ahead.
So I think go on.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Well, I've just felt so isolated because I was like, I sound like a complete, utter crazy person to anyone that my neighbors all think I'm nuts because I'm one of those people that I can't shut up. When they say things, I can't help but say something bad. So literally, I've cut off all my. I've never been a alone. Well, I've always been a loner. I like spending time alone, but I was very outgoing. I've had what I thought were hundreds of friends, and I realize I've had hundreds of acquaintances. But I thought, where am I even going to find any other people that believe anything like what I believe, which is that everything is a lie. Pretty much everything we've been taught. I've come to all these, and the fact that you guys believe literally everything I believe, and then some. And like, I had never heard of the mud flood before, but then I started looking at the pictures and I'm going, how did I miss that? But I still don't understand that the overall, I accept that there's been some sort of event, but I have no context to put it in other than, were they literally sleeping in the ground, and when they are put in the ground, and when they came up, they literally dislodged? I mean, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's something you said earlier about being alone. This is part of I'll call it the journey, that don't think it is something negative, because
I've enjoyed it because I've insulated myself against all the influences of the conditioning that's been pounded in. I quit watching the news and television.
So it's an interesting kind of
years ago.
like what you're describing. It's actually an interesting byproduct. You might think you're being isolated, but it's almost like, wait a second, Yah is putting us in this place, and in that, it seems like you're most of the time alone or by yourself. But at the same time, we've gotten closer to him. And what's interesting is we're seeing that now we're connecting with people through, we call it the internet, through Yah's communication system, that it excites me for what's next, because I'm like, okay, now we're not crazy. And
Well, I knew I wasn't
the
crazy,
community,
but I
it's
appear
that
to be
sense of
crazy to other
community.
people.
Yes,
Right.
and we always
That was
have
the
been.
one thing I
We always-
missed was the community that went with the church. I have
Right, so
missed
that's
that because
like-
I grew up in it,
that's
and I miss the community and the fellowship.
so
But
what the
that's
feeling
all I
here
missed.
is, that's where I'm like, I'm like, okay, New Jerusalem today, because that's where I'm like, that's the real community, guys. Where, I mean, hey, we can get along, we can, live good here, but as a lot of us have been sharing, that doesn't seem to be the way of the world. It's not that you can't, not that we can't live that godly life, goodly life, but it's, where do we really have that real community again? And I'm like, hey, the most realistic thing to me is what's to come, what the Father has promised us.
Uh,
And I don't think that's too far away.
Rebecca, can I just give you one piece of advice while you're new in this? Is that, and I had brought it up earlier tonight, the fourth commandment, which is remember the Sabbath day, right? And Ezekiel chapter 9. Now, a lot of people don't know this. We were talking about the mark of the beast, and everybody knows about the mark of the beast. If you're in the truther community, everybody loves talking about the mark of the beast. Very few people like talking about obedience. Most people don't realize that in the Bible there is the mark of Yahuah, the mark of Yah. If I were to ask most people, they would not be able to say what that is. And Ezekiel chapter 9 says what it is. It is keeping Sabbath. And so that is the fourth commandment. The one commandment that it says remember, and the entire church, the Catholic Church, the Christian Church, have all snubbed. Almost all completely snubbed. I know there's the Seventh-day Adventists.
Interestingly, part of my family was from the Seventh-day Adventists, so I grew up knowing what they believed, but I couldn't accept that either.
Well, my recommendation to you, and not just you, to anybody, to everybody, is that the first thing you do is that you set Sabbath aside and be like, I'm gonna every Sabbath, I want the mark of Yah. I want to be a child of Yah. I want that mark. I am, the mark of His people are those who keep Sabbath. I'm going to keep Sabbath, and on Sabbath, you open up the Bible and just start reading. When my wife and I, when Sarah and I first came into Torah obedience a few years back, our first Sabbath was like we felt like we entered a new dimension, a new paradigm. And in our first year, what we started doing is there's something called Torah portions, and with the fall
I've
feast,
been reading those on your
yeah,
website.
okay, good, yeah, and those are there for a tool, and so now those are from the Aramaic Targum. You can read the Aramaic Targum or which I love, or the Hebrew Masoretic, your typical Old Testament. But with they roll out with the fall feast coming up in late September, early October, and you go every year. It's cyclical. You go through it a whole year, and so my wife and I finished up, finishing up 3 cycles now, and our first cycle going through Torah, Genesis through Deuteronomy, we learned more that first year than our entire lives being raised in the church and being told lie after lie after lie through church sermons. A lot of truth mixed with some lies. And so that's just what I recommend. As you come into this, that because that the reason I'm stressing this is more important than the mud flood, more important than flat Earth or anything else. Everything should testify to the truth of who Yahuwah is, and the kingdom of heaven, and that's it. That's
Could you
the
describe that better? What it means to keep the Sabbath? Like what? Because that's
Yes, I have a lot
the
of questions about that because I have been, I figured out, well, it starts on Friday evening at sundown. But then I realized, doing more reading, that that's not an agreement, that it's not necessarily the seventh day exactly. It's dependent on the lunar phases. And then I just felt hopeless, because I am not a techie kind of I am no good with that sort of thing. I was like, how am I even going to figure out the any of this, how to keep this? And I want to keep Sabbath, but I have no idea how to do that.
So it's really easy to keep. What the one thing you don't do on Sabbath, it's a day of rest, and what that means is that you're not working your employment, right? Like, um, you don't go into the office and work for your employer. It's a day where it's when people come into it, like when I came into Torah, it was um, it was scary at first because it was very anthropological and there was a lot of things I didn't understand. And so I came into it with a bit of fear and trembling. But and fear and trembling is good. So when it comes to like the Sabbath, I saw Kingdom Truther in there about to jump in. Um, Almost everybody who comes into Torah, they come in through the seventh day Sabbath. There are some people in here who are they keep a lunar Sabbath. That's a debate in the movement, and everyone has to come to those conclusions. But everyone basically comes in through the seventh day, keeping Sabbath on the seventh day, as we know it by our um, um, counting up to seven, and it just so happens to land on what we know as Saturday. There are a few in this group, maybe a couple in this group that are lunar Sabbath, but that's not what I'm trying to get at here. Keeping and there's people who debate: does it start on Friday evening? Does it begin on Saturday morning? Does like again all those things? Whatever conclusion you come to, what Yahuwah wants from us is a circumcised heart. Okay, He wants us to have a circumcised heart and be like, I just want to honor you, Father. That's what I want. Just show me what to do, and I want to honor you. I'm not going to get it right all the time, but that's what He wants from us, right? He wants us to be little children who want to honor Him. Now, I personally am a morning to evening guy. Okay, I believe that a day is not 24 hours; that a day is just sunlight, and nighttime is nighttime. Not everyone's going to agree with me on that, but my family, we begin on Friday evening. It's kind of like our Sabbath celebration. And okay, go ahead and jump in, Kingdom Truth. I know you want to.
I was going to say you are right. The day starts in the morning. That can be proved in Scripture. I can tell you how, because in Genesis, He separated the two, right? He separates the light from the darkness, and He calls the light day and the darkness night. And then when you get that, and He says separated 3 times in Genesis: separate the light from the darkness. He called the day, light, darkness, night, separate, separate, separate. Then you go to verse chapter 2 of Genesis, and right off the bat, He says, and He rested on the 7th day, which He already established in the first chapter, that He separated from the night portion, which is 12 hours and 12 hours. You got a light 12 and day 12. And then He further says, and he set it apart. Well, what's it? It is the 7th day. So you are right. It's at the morning. I used to do evening to evening, but I believe that's Judaism. And I believe that's an epidemic within the body of Israel, where a lot of people are following what they're doing because they think, well, just because the Jews are doing it, it's correct. Which most people don't even realize. They're not even the real Jews over there. They're Edomites, which I know you know that, Noel. So,
and I have come to the same conclusion. So what you're saying is the Friday night to Saturday night is some new invention that or some Pharisaic. I'm probably not saying that right. It's a tradition, in other words, as opposed to.
Right. I believe if you study it, well, in all things, no matter what a man tells you or anybody tells you, you got to get on your knees and take it to Father and counsel and ask Him. But I think when you do that, it'll pan out in the Scriptures that it's a day is reckoned like exactly how Noel was just saying it. It starts in the morning, a day, and you can look at it like something like this is just off the top of my head. When like we're talking about the locusts coming into Egypt, Exodus 10, verse 4, he says, and Moshe, he says, I will bring the locusts in the land tomorrow. And then if you go to verse 14, tomorrow it says, and in the morning, the locust came up on the border. So Father is saying tomorrow, and when you look up there where tomorrow in the Hebrew, it means it's like the future. It's future tense, or a start of a new day, void of the other, detached from the day prior. So it's, if you look up the word tomorrow there, you'll see it in the Brown Driver's Briggs. It cannot. The only way evening to evening would work there, if a day starts at evening, he would have to say to Moshe, tomorrow I'm bringing the locusts up on the land. And verse 14 would say, and in the evening the locusts came up on the borders. So, and that's just one example. There's a lot of examples like that. But
So-
Well, my natural inclination is to go along with what both of you have said. To me, it feels like the day should begin in the morning.
But this is where I go back to, though. Whenever it starts, it's still a heart issue. For example, if somebody were to say, okay, Sabbath is from sunrise to sunset on this given day, then I could work really hard and get all my work done up to 5 o'clock, and then it's like, well, I don't know about that. It's like, you see what I'm saying? Like, there's an assumption that nighttime you're going to rest anyways. But okay, okay, I wanted to just. There was a couple. Go ahead.
It's funny that you say that, because the first 2 or 3 times I tried to hold Sabbath, I ran into that very problem. I was rushing around like a maniac trying to get everything done before sunset and failing miserably.
Yeah,
and I'm still washing dishes after dark and thinking I'm sinning, and feeling horrible about it, and like I can't even do this right.
Yeah, you don't need Catholic guilt here. So yeah, Friday. Now, of course, Kingdom Truther keeps a lunar calendar, so they're going to fall on different days of the week. But for every Friday is my preparation day. That's tomorrow. Oh, actually, today. Today, well, we're going into Friday now. And so this will be my preparation day. It's the day I like to clean the house, because I like to treat the day like I'm spending it with Yahusha. So make sure the house is clean, and make sure all the food's prepared, all that kind of stuff. But it's something that and it's something I really look forward to. But it's something that you will come into, like you will as you. That's why I said the first thing is. Get set to set Sabbath aside, even if you're not doing it all right at first. What's going to start happening is, as you start to read Scripture, and on Sabbath, you're going to start learning this stuff. You're going to start seeing that there's only 613 laws, only 613. That's not many. And people, they freak out over that. Never mind the fact that there's millions of laws in the United States. Nobody bats an eye at that. New laws being passed every day. Nobody bats an eye. But you'll start running these 613 laws that most of them don't even apply to you. Like you go, oh wow, like I'm not a Levite priest, so the laws pertaining to the Levite priest don't apply to me. I'm not a menstruating woman, so those laws don't apply to me. I'm not a farmer, so those laws don't apply to me. And you start just going down this list, and you're like, okay, it's actually it's just what do you fall on these laws, right? And it can be overwhelming at first, but that's the thing about Sabbath, right? It's the mark of His people. Just just enjoy the day, relax, read the Bible, listen to some YouTube, videos like, Parable of the Vineyard or whatever it is. And it's going to start coming to you. Anyways, I just wanted to have that discussion, because that is important, and it is the greatest truth, more than anything else, more than realizing that Marilyn Monroe is a man, or JFK never died, or, all those things. Like, all of those are third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh in comparison to the greatest truth of all, of realizing we have one shot at it in this life. And almost everybody, you start realizing that people actually hate the Father. They actually hate him. Absolutely. They want nothing to do with him. And it's testimony to the fact of how many people hate Torah. And that right there is, it's sorrowful to see it. Anyways, it is 12:20. You guys can keep talking. I am going to go to sleep. Rebecca, if you ever want to just talk to anybody here or myself, we could always set up that time because I think it's important.
I
And
really appreciate that. And I have wanted to talk to you. Just, I don't know if there's anyone else nearby in my area. I mean, I don't even know where to start finding people to physically fellowship with. But I feel like he'll give me that. I think he wants me in isolation right now. But I've got a lot of issues. I live with the son who is just absolutely flabbergasted at me throwing all the pork in the house out, and angry. He's not happy with any of this. He thinks I've lost my mind.
well, you're going to start finding that, and I don't know I have no clue how much research you've done on that. I remember when we threw out all our pork, and then it still took a year or two to realize, oh, that Jello we're eating has pork in
Oh,
it.
I know. I'm
And
having all those issues right now.
But the thing is, though, is that when I started realizing that pork is almost literally in everything, it became the Bible, scripture became so much more of a reality to me. Like, this is legit. Like, people really do hate the Father, and Satan wants everybody unclean. And it's just like, yeah, it became so much more legit to see that. And, anyways, I am going to go to sleep. I'm going to be signing out. And I do want to talk to you again. So,
Well, thank you, and I'm gonna send you a friend request on here or whatever that is, and I hope to talk to you again, definitely.
okay. All right.
And
Well,
anyone else who wants to, send me one, I'm looking for like-minded children of Yahuah. Oh, and I want to say something else. I know you want to go to bed. I really appreciate. I understand you had scrubbed a lot of things about Paul off your website, but right about the time I read what you wrote about Paul, I had read something somewhere else, a few things. I had come to the understanding. I was reading and I was going, wait, this isn't what Jesus. I was still thinking Jesus at the time. This isn't what Jesus said. This Paul is going strictly against. But the one thing that a lot of people that speak against Paul have such a bad spirit about it and hateful. And I read what you wrote about not having the right attitude, and I that just struck me so hard, and I was like, yes, this is the right spirit. Because I actually felt at first like maybe a spirit of has taken over me at where I'm being led down a path to believe all kinds of nonsense with questioning Paul. Maybe this is a bad spirit that's trying to take me away from the Word of God. And then I realized, no, it's a test. And then you said the same thing. It's a test.
yeah, I believe Paul is.
So anyway, that I just wanted to tell you that how much you have comforted me just reading your words. And if you ever feel like your blog is just out there doing nothing, it isn't. It, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be doing half the things I'm doing right now or believing half the things. I had a big chunk of it, but I didn't have the why.
Praise
Yeah,
Yahuah.
yeah, yeah. Praise Yah, and so I'll say on Paul really quickly that if my my thing with Paul to everybody is that there's a passage in Deuteronomy chapter 13. It's what we call in the Torah movement the Deuteronomy 13 test, and it basically says Yahuwah says this: if any prophet come into your camp and he prophesies correctly and he performs signs that are true, but he leads you to another Elohim, meaning he leads you away from the Torah. Like he tells you to not be obedient to this. He could say it's been done away with or whatever it is, that this is a false prophet. And so whenever anyone comes to me and they say, I don't have to keep the law because Paul says so, my response to them is, well, it sounds like he is a false prophet then. Because according to Torah, Torah cannot be done away with. And that's my position. If people really do claim that he kept Torah and he proclaimed Torah and that everyone is too stupid to get that, then great for them. I don't
The
want it
thing
to
I
be.
kept going back to was, and I keep wanting to say Jesus. It's going to take a while to scrub that from my mind. But I wanted to know his real name because I knew Jesus wasn't it. Yahusha said, beware the leaven of the Pharisees. Oh, he said it over and over. And
Yeah,
who was, you know,
yeah.
I would
So
just
go
like
ahead.
to add to Noel's what he said, and Noel's spot on. But just to add a little extra to what Noel was saying, there is a test, as Noel said, in the New Testament, and it's sometimes it's a really hard pill for some to swallow, but that's indeed, in fact, the case. And it's a test from Father, and really, it's the test of the two trees, is what Father has undeniably revealed to me when I was studying one day, that it's the test of the two trees going down throughout the whole entire course of the scriptures everywhere. What you have is you have the doctrine of Father, which his sons was promoting, defending, teaching. He says, I did not come at my own, these are not my words. These are my Father's words. This is not my doctrine. This is my Father's doctrine. That is the tree of life. Now you have Paul is teaching from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the reason why Paul is very deceptive is because he teaches truth mixed with lies. And it's
right.
mixed. It's a mixed doctrine where you will find stuff that you're like, well, yeah, that's spot on, Paul. Yep. But then you've got contradictions and lies. And therein lies the test, because it's very hard to see that. And you will not see that until you get on your hands and knees and say, Father, what is going on with this going here? Because what happened to me is, I believe in my walk, he tried to show me this about 2 years ago, and I would not hear it, because I remember I happened to get onto a video by this guy named Laverne at the time. He's got a website called Trust in JC. And I said, he had about an hour and a half presentation, and I watched about 10 minutes of it and shut it off. And I was like, this guy is nuts. And I was going, I was like, just, scoffing and yeah. But what my mistake was, is as I got more seasoned in my walk and a little bit more mature, is I failed Proverbs 18:13. Shame and folly on me for making up my mind without hearing the man out. So what did I do? What was I guilty of? Basically, it's like a court case. This guy had an hour and a half worth of evidence, and I only heard 10 minutes of it and made up my mind. How is that being unbiased and impartial and being a fair steward of finding the truth? If you're only going to listen to just part of it and just shut your ears off, right? So he took it away from me. So for 2 more years, I believe, yeah, Paul. Then Justin Best, and which is something, we all know what happened after the fact, but at the time, he started coming up with all these other videos, and I was watching it, and at the time, he came out with his first video, and he was going through this 50 reasons of why Paul's false. Now, when I was watching it on my sofa, I immediately started getting irritated and hostile. And I was like, I remember typing in the chat, oh, he better not be saying what I think he's saying. And I'm getting all like ready to arm wrestle everybody, let's get them with pitchforks. And then I got this feeling, this urge swept over my body, like, calm yourself down and hear him out. Like, I felt like this, like, cut it out. Like you're doing the same thing. I really believe that was the Ruach coming on to me to say, shut your mouth and listen to the man. Hear him out first before you make any decisions. Be a wise judge. Hear his case out. So I stopped typing, and I sat there the whole time, and I heard him out. And then what you know what was the biggest difference that I made that night compared to the 2 years ago? When I got done listening to him, I went in my bedroom and I got on my hands and knees and I prayed to Father and I said, Father, I just heard the most craziest thing I think ever. But this brother Justin is saying X, Y, and Z about Paul. Father, is this true? Because I need to know this, Father. And if this is true, I need to know because I don't want to be deceived. And I will follow you wherever the truth goes, even if it makes me unpopular within my own family of Israel. I want to follow you and be in right ruling with you. And right after that, he started showing me things about Paul that I could not believe. And within 3 weeks, I knew what was going down. And that's when it all changed. Now, the only way you're going to have that resolved in your mind is if Father resolves it for you. But the point is, you got to do your research, as Noel knows that. Do your research and always bring it to Father in council. And don't be so quick to shut other brothers and sisters down just because it's something that you don't understand. And I'm trying to learn from Noel's server and Noel himself and all his regulars on his server, because I have my own server, about the mud flood and about premillennial. Now, I don't want to do the same thing that people do to me when I come to them about Paul and shut them. So I'm trying to keep an open mind because maybe Noel is right. How do I know? So I'm praying the Father about what Noel is teaching. So, we should always keep our minds open to something that we might not understand, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. You know what I mean? And just
Right.
Now, just keep in mind when it comes to what I'm teaching about millennial is that though I am becoming more and more convinced of what I'm looking into, that I always try to tell people I'm just looking into this
right.
possibility, right? Like, anyways, but anyways,
No,
yeah, you guys.
I understand that. Yeah.
So
I find it fascinating, though. I find it absolutely fascinating. And sometimes I come into your server and I might press you guys a little bit and I want to just kind of challenge you a little bit, iron versus iron. But, but I am definitely going to be praying to Father about this subject, brother.
My position is that I am 100% convinced that there was a judgment upon the earth. Where there was a mud flood event. Now, the mud flooders, some will say that they were the mud floods we're looking at were a series of events. And there's all that, but there was I could take you to any city in America, in Europe, anywhere in the world, really, and prove to you that the mud flood did in fact happen, and that history has shaken it, has scrubbed it. It never happened, right? You're not going to find it in any history books. What I'm trying to figure out is this grand society that existed on the earth in every single continent before the mud flood, where we see these big, beautiful domed buildings with Corinthian pillars, all these things. What in the world is that? And that's where I'm just trying to say, is it possibly the millennial kingdom? I'm not saying it was, but I bet the more I do look into it, the more I am becoming convinced that very likely the case. Anyways, on that note, you guys keep talking. I'm signing out. Shalom, guys, and we'll do this again next Thursday.
You got it, brother. Shalom.
Good night.
Shalom. Good night, all.
Light
Shalom, all.